Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. Hello, every pony. How is everyone? Okay, I'm visible. This is working. This is working. I'm gonna switch to waiting because I think we're ready to go. Let's see who's here. We have Pink. Hi, Ren. Hi, Pink. Obviously, you're here. Pink, say hi.
Hello. Hello. Hi, everybody.
Still can't hear. It's not monitoring. Hello, Atheris. Would you still want me to call you Atheris, or would you prefer I went by your user? Hi, Cass. Hello. Welcome in. Happy Friday. Are you on spring break? Hello, Noct. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Music down a notch? Absolutely. It was actually a little loud in my headphones too, so I can do that. Is that, well, music's not really playing right now, but when it does, let me know. I'm happy to change whatever we need to change. I don't mind. Would you, so Nasia, is that what you would prefer, or I can still do Atheris or either one? Just want to make sure I'm getting it right. All right, guys, I know this was so much later than we said it would be. Pink was having some internet issues, and then I was working on a Discord issue, and then I forgot to set things up vertically in OBS. It was a blah, 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 blah. So we're way later than we planned on, but I still really wanted to do this week. My plan was to actually make this on Wednesday because it's called Wormhole Wednesday, but I've had really bad allergies, and Wednesday ended up being kind of a big day for me, period. But I still really wanted to do it this week because we're piloting this. This is the first episode of Wormhole Wednesday, where we're doing an interview segment. And my intention moving forward is to make this consistent. So I do have somebody lined up for next week. For our next segment, it will be on Wednesday. And I do have other people who are interested in doing more interviews moving forward. So I'm hoping this could end up being a consistent weekly interview where we go over interesting topics, whether those are mental health related or special interest related or just general interest related. People who have expertise in a lot of different fields. You know, one of the things I've talked about a lot on stream and off is that even my doctors say, I love learning. And I think one of the things that we really love here on stream is that we can have really interesting conversations about storylines. So I remember when we went through Deltarune and Undertale and Omori, those were some of our, I think of them as some of our best streams. They were just so interesting and intriguing, and it was just such a fun time. And I was thinking, how can I bring that into stream in another way that isn't just playing games? And I thought, oh wait, I've got cool friends who know things and have life experiences that I think could be really cool for me to learn about, not only because I care about my friends, but also because I think we all could learn. And who knows, today we're going to be talking about OCD. So this segment is called Lost in Orbit, which is supposed to be a fun space play on words where you get lost in spiraling thoughts. And Pink is kind enough and brave enough to be sharing about their experience with OCD and what that feels like on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, your experience, Pink, is not going to be the monolith for every experience.
Exactly, yes.
But I definitely think you have just a ton of information and insight that people can either relate to or learn about. And we've talked a lot already. Yeah, no, I'm super interested in, I'm super excited to see what the conversation is going to be, because we have some really cool conversations about mental health. So let me read some of the comments. I'm EPA. I have really bad vertigo and a headache. Oh no! I woke up to a stream alert. Been sleeping like a man on his deathbed. I hope you're not getting sick. Interviewing who? So today we're interviewing Pink. Yeah, hi Pink.
Hello. Me.
Yes, that's Pink. Yes, that's
Hi, everybody.
Pink. You probably know her. She's a moderator and generally just an active part of the community. And then we're going to be talking about OCD next week. Who knows? We'll just have to find out, I guess.
You'll have to come to and watch the stream.
Yeah, you're just going to have to watch the stream. It will be next Wednesday. And I do have somebody lined up, and I think it'll be really cool. Hello, Tater. Welcome in. Good to see you. How you doing? Also, hi, Damien. And Damien, that is a great question to start us off with. I'll get there in just a second. Hello, John Toe. Hi, John Toe. John Toe.
John Toe.
Winter is coming. I have a cup of tea.
In Farsi, that could be a compliment, by the way. John Eto.
John Eto. John. What does John mean?
John can mean life. Well, I guess not really a compliment, but more like a statement. But still, it's not like a negative thing. So, John Eto could be like, I beg of your life, kind of like Juneto, but this could be past tense. So,
okay.
Something interesting to throw out there.
Hello, Michael. Welcome in. Welcome in. Adam, thank you for the sub. Thank you so much. I wish I got those notifications through OBS, but I do not. I am sorry. But thank you. Welcome in, everybody. So, I think we got started off with a really great question from Damien. I'm going to switch over to our wormhole overlay. It's brand new and shiny for people who have been here for a while.
It's so cute. I'm so excited for you to reveal this. It's so cool, you guys. It looks so good.
Let me just double check here. Things should be good, so we should be able to switch over. Ta-da! And let me add the music as a source, because I forgot to do that. So we have our new our new wormhole overlay. The mics are so cool. Thank you. What did I do for what the heck? Application audio capture? Is it that one? Is music? Yes, this one. Okay, now we have music. Okay. The mics are so cool. I love it. Yay! I'm glad you guys love it. It took a little bit of time, but I think it came out pretty well. And the cool thing is, in the background, you can see that text that says "Welcome to Wormhole Wednesday." Guess what? I'm gonna be typing notes as we talk. So this will be like, you'll see the notes in the background, and I'll be writing things down and stuff.
Everybody send some jig emojis. We're dancing.
Some jigs. Show me your jigs. Show me your jigs.
Everybody get wiggly with it.
And if you can't, just send an emote if you want, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, that's a good one, Cass. That's a good celebratory emote.
Very good choice. Very good choice. 10 out of 10. A+.
Okay, so Damien asked, I think it's a great starting question. What is OCD?
That is a really good question. And let me know, Astro, kind of when you want to jump in, because we've talked a lot about this topic, I think, over the last few months. And so I think also you have some very interesting insight and thoughts about it, the whole thing. But OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. And it typically, when people think of OCD, they do think of obsessively doing things physically. This is one of the things you and I have discussed, which is it's a pretty big, I don't want to say misunderstanding, because that is, I think, more of the front and center thing. When people think of OCD, they think of someone who is, washing their hands excessively, turning lights on and off excessively. They have to do something, and it's a compulsion. Like, you have to do something, or else you physically feel like something is wrong. So that is one part of it, and I think it does kind of, some people have it all the time. Sometimes it, is more, sometimes it's less. The other part of OCD, though, and it is referred to as pure O, which is it's purely mental. So pure O is more of what I deal with. So I don't necessarily deal with a lot of the actual physical compulsions like hand washing, although it does come up sometimes. For me, it's more so mental.
Hmm.
So when I say pure O, for me it's what, and I love what Astro did with the title, which is like you're kind of lost in orbit. You get stuck in very cyclical thoughts. And I think part of what we were talking about was the what if and then. I'm gonna take a pause here just because again, Astro and I have talked a lot about this,
Hmm.
and they have a lot of, I think, interesting insight as someone who is seeing someone else go through this. So I'm going to take a pause there in case you have
Yeah,
anything you want to add.
we actually already had Damien said definitely me. So Damien, do you have OCD? I'll ask you that. I will also say the floor is entirely open. If anybody has any questions, that's helpful for me. I am acting as an interviewer, um, but oh, why is it? There we go. My coloring was off. I'm acting as an interviewer, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna have all the questions that everybody wants to hear. Matthew, hello, thank you for the follow. Also, I saw Jay. Hi, Jay. Hello, we're talking OCD today. My best friend has OCD. We go to school together, and she has specific stuff she does. So that sounds more like a compulsion. So my understanding, and you can jump in and correct me at any point, Pink. But my understanding is that so there is OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, and essentially it's relating those two things, where you have thoughtful obsessions, and more physical compulsions, and that doesn't mean that the obsessive thoughts don't have physical consequences or physical manifestations. It also doesn't mean that the compulsions don't have obsessive thoughts. The idea is that they kind of play off of each other. Now, for certain people, OCD presents differently. For some, they may lean more towards the compulsion side. So that's where you think of your caricatures of washing your hands a million times, or because you think something bad's going to happen, or flipping the light switch on and off repetitively because there's going to be some consequence if you don't. Versus an obsessive thought, which I think Pink can share a lot more about. But obsessive thoughts really acting like spirals. You get into these thought processes that you can't get out of. Essentially, you're trapped by your own thoughts, and they continue into these hypotheticals, these what ifs, if that, then this, if that, then this. And we were having a really cool conversation last night actually about this. So it really becomes from my outward experience, somebody who's outside of it. I do have some obsessive thought tendencies, but I have never been diagnosed with OCD, and I have been screened for it. And I do have family members who either have OCD or have certain tendencies. So like, for example, one of my tendencies, just for a little bit of vulnerability, I have what's either called dermatophagia or dermatillomania. So I pick at my skin, specifically at my skin around my lips and my fingers. And the reason why this is considered for me an obsessive tendency and more of a obsessive compulsion, so an OCD tendency, is that it's not due to a lack of stimulation. It's not directly linked to stress. I do it because I have to have smooth skin. If I don't, it makes me viscerally uncomfortable, and I will go to the point where, slight trigger warning, but fingers will be bloody, mouth will be bleeding, because the skin has to be that way. Otherwise, I am viscerally uncomfortable. My sister has trichotillomania, which is the hair pulling, so she pulls out her hair. So those are, to my understanding, tendencies that lean towards OCD, but there are a lot of other diagnostic criteria that go into getting a diagnosis for OCD. So I think I think what's really interesting, first of all, we've already described this difference between the obsessions and the compulsions, although that they overlap, right? I don't know if you can have one without the other. Can you? I mean, because you say pure O, where it's purely mental, but you also said that you have some compulsions that manifest as well. Do you know
Yes.
if it's possible to literally not have any compulsions or not have obsessive thoughts whatsoever with OCD? Or does it kind of go hand in hand regardless?
Not really. So they do kind of go hand in hand regardless. And the thing with OCD too is, and they're called themes, which is your theme could be different just depending on what you get triggered by. So like, I might go months without worrying about like hand washing, for example. And then out of nowhere, that theme, quote unquote, will get triggered by something. So I think a lot of people also think it's something very static and linear, which is like, oh, if you have this, then you're always going to have this, which is not the case. Sometimes you distance yourself from your triggers and you're able to, for example, for any reason, although it's almost impossible, in my opinion, to fully ever get rid of things that are going to trigger you. It's more so about being able to deal with the triggers better. But there are points of time in my life where I've been not surrounded by X, Y, and Z, and then I've been able to not have those particular subtypes or themes or whatnot pop up. So in my opinion, it's not necessarily that, like, you know, I have Puro and I'm never gonna have X, or I have X and I'm never gonna have the other one. I think it's just about it really does ebb and flow. So
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about themes, because that's actually something I don't know anything about. But Cass says she knocks on desks in a specific pattern before sitting down. Some of our teachers aren't exactly kind about it. So that's awful. I mean, it is a bona fide mental disorder. It's not like she's doing something wrong, right? That is, Pink and I have had a lot of conversations about how and why OCD manifests in the brain. And, you know, you're not, that compulsion, you know, to knock on something repetitively is not harming anybody. I mean, I would say something if it, you know, made her knuckles raw or something, but even then, it's not as though it's causing harm to other people in really any material way. So that's just, unfortunately, people being bigoted and ableist, which, well, supplies people being bigoted and ableist, especially if they're from a previous generation. Wow. I'm so shocked. Also, hi Ditzy, welcome in. Hello, hello. But I'm sorry to hear that. I'm at the station again. Oh, at the fire station. Cool. I hope you're having fun.
Hello.
We're having a talk about OCD today. I'm interviewing Pink about OCD. Yeah, so you brought up the idea of a theme, and you said it's dependent on what you get triggered by, but what exactly is a theme in OCD?
So that's a really good question. So when I say like OCD themes, it's basically just the topic that your OCD is currently latching onto. So OCD is basically, and I think you described this really well when we were talking yesterday, which is it's a what if. And that what if gets followed then by, I have to figure this out, I have to fix this, I have to make sure this is not true. The theme is whatever fills in that blank. So for example, there are harm themes. What if I hurt someone? So like, for example, let's say I'm driving and I'm like, what if I, you know, veer off of the highway right now and end up killing my passenger, for example, right? That is a harm theme. There are a really common one that I'm seeing online right now are relationship themes, ROCD, which is what if I don't actually love my partner? What if I don't care about this person? What if I don't like my friend and I just don't know it? And I, you know, and then that turns, so the different themes are basically the different pieces of content that currently your OCD is attaching to and is trying to quote unquote solve by
It's like
questioning it. And yeah.
It's basically it is the overarching theme of your thoughts, whatever it is that you're obsessing over in those moments. That's what it's about. So in a relationship theme, right, your obsessive thoughts are going to lean to or discuss relationships, right? So whether that's with your partner or with a hypothetical partner or with somebody else's partner or romance in general, you know, what have you, it will kind of circle around that idea of relationships. And
Yes.
Also welcome in Bailey. Hello, hello. Hi, how are you? How are you? We live in a fairly religious area in the Midwest. Yeah, and unfortunately, religion doesn't often look kindly upon mental illness. There's an entire group of kids with us because it's my sister's birthday and I'm a bit overwhelmed right now, but I do have to go. I'm sorry. I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed in social situations for sure. I have eaten today. I had some deviled eggs and some nuts and a protein bar, and I'm having some tea. Have you eaten, baby?
Delicious.
Okay. So we have a theme that's kind of the overarching topic that your OCD is, you said, latching onto in a given, you know, point or, you know, point in time or time of your life. For whatever reason, I guess, it can pop up. I guess there are a million different reasons as to why a particular theme could become the center of obsessive thoughts. Is that correct?
That is very correct. And it will always change because one of the biggest themes with OCD is that you are always there's always going to be a new goalpost. It's never solved. Like, you can't, as much as you want to solve the thing, even if somehow you do get to some resolution with yourself and you're like, I feel better about this, it will pick something new.
And that's the disordered part of it, is that it continues. Because, so, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm understanding here is that, you know, in a non OCD thought process, which I'm not saying, here's the other thing, is that OCD, any kind of mental disorder, if it's diagnosable as something that impacts your life consistently, has a significant impact on your day-to-day life, and is consistently impacting your life in that way. So when something is disordered, it doesn't mean that you don't have you can't have aspects of that disorder. It just means that it's not impacting you in the same way that it would somebody who has that disorder. We also are in an ad break, so I'm gonna pause for those that don't have a sound. But we'll touch back on. I'm just going over kind of
The latest comment you got is kind of funny. Oh, Bailey.
I have not eaten today. I don't feel good. Too nauseous to eat. I understand that too. Take it easy. You know, saltine crackers if you have them, or just water. Just make sure you're taking care of your bodies. It doesn't help. The longer you go without eating, sometimes the more nauseous you can get.
Correct.
So
Gotta go
whatever
with
you can
something
do.
light.
Yeah.
Gatorade. Saltine crackers are great.
We can, and honestly, Bailey, this is a great time to play Baby Sensory as a little breather while there's an ad going. So if you want to do it, go for it.
I would not be mad.
I just need to add it as a media source really quick, because I didn't think about the sensory fruit being used.
Sensory fruit. People love the fruit.
They love the fruit. All right, there you go, Bailey. But I'm kind of going over my understanding of, you know, disordered thoughts versus having aspects of
Relaxing. Hey, if this is relaxing, that is
Well,
why I asked for the receipt.
me, the music too, so it's not two different audios. All right, we did get a Baby Sensory redeem, so a little bit of a break. Welcome back from the ads. Disordered. I'll let that run for a little while longer. It's a little bit of a brain break. It's not, this isn't, I'm feeling fine. I wouldn't say I'm overwhelmed by the conversation whatsoever. I find this very, very interesting. How are you doing, Pete?
I love this, to be honest. It helps a lot for me, purely because I think, you know, I stigmatized and villainized my own OCD for many, many, many years. This is the first time anyone has ever known about it. So it's strangely healing to talk about it in a way that is just purely talking about it versus,
Right.
oh my God, I have this thing and blah, 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 and X, Y, and Z. So I'm very grateful. And I also hope that, you know, people can see it as more of just like, it's a thing that some people have and some people deal with, and they can still be very good people. They can also be bad people, but the disorder itself doesn't really lend to that.
Right, exactly. Tater says, it feels very refreshing to me to hear y'all talk about this topic. I was diagnosed with OCD back in September. Congratulations.
Yay.
I hope that has given you validation and kind of some insights into yourself. I know congratulations can kind of feel mixed. I say that from the place of, I always think it's a benefit to learn more about yourself. And coming from a long history of mental health issues and a long list of diagnoses, having something that you can organize your self-concept under can really help you find coping strategies and, you know, ways to navigate your life that benefit you specifically. So thank you for sharing, and I'm glad. That's what I wanted to do with this series anyway, is that, you know, whether it's talking about OCD or, you know, one person wants to talk about geology potentially or what have you, there are so many things in the world that we don't get the chance to talk about on a daily basis. And I am such a person who I love questioning things. I love learning. I've said that. And I very rarely get to have these types of conversations where I can really dig deep into a topic and understand it better. And the other thing I love about specifically talking about mental health is that number one, it's still very stigmatized, even though we're creating safe pockets and communities for it or discussion about it. But number two is that I'm understanding a very close friend of mine anyway, right? I'm understanding Pink better, and I'm understanding my community better. We've had 3 or 4 people now talk about either they themselves have OCD or people they know have OCD. And so now we're all just understanding each other better. And I think that is just, at the bare minimum, helping people. And that's what I want to do if I can do it. So thank you for sharing. It's
I'm gonna
very
start
powerful.
crying.
And I know it's not easy. And I fully understand that, but it's it's brave to share those kinds of things. Ren says, I have a question. My friend has OCD. I think a big chunk is health OCD. And sometimes I feel a bit out of my depth as to how to be a good friend in those situations. What would be your advice for being a good friend to someone with OCD? I do relate a lot to the obsessive thoughts. I get those too, but from my tism, I think. Okay, so that's an interesting question. Um, I feel that this feels like a decent question for me, but I wonder, Pink, do you have any insights there too?
Well, I definitely want to pass it back to you in just a second. I will say that I think it's very sweet that you're asking this question. I do
Hmm.
think it's a two-parter. I think part of it is also like, for me, I had to put boundaries for myself. So I had to learn about, like, for example, reassurance seeking is not healthy. It is not a good
Hmm.
thing. Now there's also part of it is learning more about myself in order to get to that point where I can say, hey bestie, if I ask you something like this, I need you to do this. So it was a very specific, like, and me and Astra had that conversation where it's like, sometimes I will get stuck in a OCD spiral where I think like someone's angry at me, even though logically I know they're not. So they're, it's, I think it's nuanced. But I think part of it is also like literally just asking your friend, like, hey, I know you deal with this. How can I best support you while also keeping in mind that OCD does have certain things that show up that we just can't do. Like
Right.
reassurance seeking is a big one. It's unhealthy for me. I need to learn to be better about doing that, and I need people around me to know that if something like this comes up, you know, that okay, we're basically feeding her OCD. I'm gonna take a pause there because I think Astro is gonna have a lot more of a perspective on this, being that he is the one who is friends with the person with OCD. So
Right. Also, hello Grimpro, hello monsters. Are you gonna eat us? Maybe. Maybe. Who knows?
yeah.
Keep an eye open at all times. All right. I ain't got these teeth for no reason, but also hide. So the thing is that I think one of the really important things for me to understand being a friend of somebody with OCD, and you care, I mean, you care about your friends. And this is one point that I want to make first, is that I do hear a lot on the internet about how it's not our responsibility to take care of other people's mental health. And that is basically correct. That it is not your
Mhm.
responsibility to handle the symptoms of somebody else's mental health. You are not a healthcare professional. You cannot get them specified treatment for what it is that they're struggling with. It's not your job to try to treat their mental health. However, when we care about people, we also want to be supportive in their mental health journeys, in whatever way that looks like, right? And that is a normal function of being a friend or being a partner or being a loved one, is being supportive in that way. And so when I say it requires a little bit of effort, I want to be very clear that this is not burdensome effort. It's not anything more than what you would do for literally if somebody had a physical illness. For example, somebody has they have epilepsy, right? And they faint very constantly. You know that there might be certain triggers for their epilepsy. So okay, we should be aware of these things when we go out or when we're at home or what have you in different contexts, because you're trying to take care of that person. And you wouldn't, I think the stigma around mental health is that When it's a physical condition that we are asked to care for as loved ones of people who have these conditions, it's not looked at as this giant, negative burden to help them. But with mental health, it is. And I think that that is so wrong because it creates this culture of isolation for people who are struggling. And that's the
Mhm.
exact opposite of what people need a lot of the time. They just need the right kind of support. So I want to say that first. The second piece is that for me, the biggest and most helpful thing with trying to be supportive of somebody with OCD is understanding what reassurance seeking is and how it shows up in OCD. Um, Now, my understanding, and again, Pink, jump in, correct me at any point, but I did this research on my own because number one reason I did it on my own. Of course, I ask Pink. We have a very communicative, relationship. We're very open and honest about a lot of things. And I do trust Pink, but I wanted to make sure that I was getting the information from very frankly, somebody who didn't have OCD. Because
Mhm.
if I did get it from you when you were going through a spiral, you might tell me one thing that is biased because you're in a spiral, right? And because you're
Yep.
struggling
Mhm.
acutely in a moment. So I wanted to make sure, okay, I'm going to go get this information myself. It's my job. I don't have OCD, you do. I'm not going to use you as as my tool for understanding it. Um, I'm going to try to do some of this to understand it as best I can. And the first thing was understanding reassurance seeking. So when we think of reassurance, we often think of, hey, you can do it. You're doing a good job. No, you're pretty. No, you're this. And those statements, in and of themselves, are not harmful statements to really anyone. Those are not inherently harmful. To say you're doing a great job is not doing something harmful. However, if somebody is in a spiral or has a tendency to spiral or has OCD, if that's one of their now I'm using the word theme, right? If that's a theme for them. So for example, if a physical appearance is a theme for them that they think about obsessively and they spiral about, well, if I don't do this, then I won't be pretty, then people won't like me, then I won't have friends, right? That is an example of a spiraling thought. Um, if you tell them, no, you're pretty, or no, you're handsome, or no, you're attractive, what you're doing is in that moment is temporarily assuaging that kind of sense of confusion. You're answering that question. You're giving that thought process an answer, but it's going
Mhm.
to come back. It will
Yes.
always come back because, as Pink said, the goalpost moves. So if it's, if I don't cut my hair, I won't be pretty, therefore I won't have friends. Then it will become, well, if I don't get my eyelashes done, then I won't be pretty, then I won't have friends. If I don't get if I don't get this outfit, then I won't be pretty, then I won't have friends. It always changes, and they'll keep coming back to ask for that reassurance to answer the question that they're trying so desperately to answer. And again, from my perspective, wanting an answer to a question is not a harmful thing, but what it's doing is repeating the cycle. It's not helping to break it. So, as a friend of somebody with OCD, what you don't want to do is help them continue the cycle. You want to help them break the cycle. And Pink and I had a really, really awesome conversation about this last night. And I think I could pass it over to you to describe some of what we talked about. Um, but some of the steps to helping both as the person who has OCD and somebody who's a friend or a loved one of the person who has OCD, what are things that you can do to help break out of the spiral? And I just wanted to read. Ren says, I'm typically someone who would reassure, look stuff up, etc. So I feel like, quote, I fed the OCD. And I wanted to say, looking things up is not inherently harmful. In fact, it's informing yourself.
Mhm.
Just because OCD is I almost want to call it, it's a very particular disorder. It requires a very particular treatment. It's not your typical depression and anxiety, although those can be comorbid. Um, you just need to be aware of certain things and how they sound or how they might look. Um, and once you are, it's really not hard to say, I'm noticing a pattern here. I'll say like, Pookie, I'm kind of noticing a pattern here. I'm kind of noticing a spiral. I just want to let you know. And you can say it in a very kind and caring way and just say, I just want to let you know that. And, then the person can do what they need to do to take care of themselves. But that's kind of my 2 cents. There's more to it. But I do want to talk to some of when you're in a spiral, what are the steps to do to try to help yourself out of it? And I know it's easier said than done, but what are some things that you have learned or that you use?
So, I mean, for me, I think one, and I cannot recommend this enough, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a, it's not too much of a tangent, but it's something that I think is important. Therapy is very helpful. Um, Having a professional to talk to, because here's the thing, I don't think I would have gone to therapy if I didn't have friends who told me, "Hey, my therapist is great. Hey, my therapist is actually helping me a lot." And I was like, "Oh, maybe my experience with therapy is not this like, standard experience, and I just had this one therapist that was bad." So that's just something I want to put out there, that it does help.
Mhm.
Having someone to talk to who can give you the skills that you need is incredibly helpful. Another part of it for me was also just being a little bit more open about it. It's still very difficult for me to be vulnerable about when I'm not feeling great, but it does help, because the thing is, with OCD, and this is something that Astrid and I have talked about, it's something my therapist has told me to do. You can get very easily stuck in your spiral because you continue to kind of sit there and marinate in it.
Mhm.
Because the entire thing with OCD is, a lot of people are like, well, it's just anxious thoughts, right? Not really. It is anxious thoughts, but you can't sit with it. Like for me, I can't be like, oh, okay, I'm a little stressed and I'm having a bad day. I'm gonna go like buy myself some ice cream and try to work through this. For me, it's, I need to solve this immediately.
Mhm.
So, and then it doesn't stop. So it'll be like, here is the thought, and now it's going to lead to this other thought, and that's going to lead to the other thought, and you will, I think Aster sometimes uses the word, I like it, you want to think it to death, and
Mhm.
that doesn't solve it.
Mhm.
It's not going to fix it, because there's nothing to fix. That's the thing. It attacks things that you really care about, and every time that you try to quote unquote talk yourself out of it, you're like, but this one feels real. This thought
Mhm.
feels like it's a real thought, and it's something that I do have to fix. This one is the legit thought. So to go back to your question in terms of like, how do you take yourself out of cycles, I will say, if you can and you are comfortable to do so, um, talking about it and saying, I'm going through a spiral right
Mhm.
now, is actually very helpful. um, because you're acknowledging that you are in a spiral, versus I am having a legitimate string of thoughts and I have to sit here. Calling it a spiral actually does put you in a mindset of like, okay, I'm having a spiral right now. I don't need to fix these thoughts. I'm
Mhm.
going to go do something to take myself out of this circle that I'm in. Part of it is also like, I personally, and I'm not saying everybody will try to do this, is I want to like rationalize it. I got frustrated. Um we were having a conversation. I was getting angry because I'm like, no, this thought is real. I don't know why you're trying to change my mind. This one is real, and
Mhm.
I have to stick to it.
Mhm.
Um and I really appreciate that I have such a good friend that I'm comfortable enough, and they're comfortable enough to tell me like, okay, this is not a rational thought, and you need to step out of it. So one is, I will say, having a good support network is incredibly helpful. Having a good therapist is incredibly helpful. um, the other parts of it also, just like stuff that my therapist has told me to do, literally being physical. One of the things she told me, and because I was like, well, sometimes I kind of just sit there and I keep thinking and I keep thinking and I keep thinking. And she's like, I know this sounds kind of silly, but literally putting your hands up and going, I think this is an
Mhm.
OCD thought. It feels really silly in the moment, and it feels kind of juvenile. I'm like, why am I doing this? Huh? But it
Right.
actually does help. It does help. It feels
Like one of
weird,
those
but it helps.
moments you're just sitting in your bedroom doing something strange to try to make yourself feel better. You know,
Hmm.
like
And it helps.
I'd see those TikToks of people who put something silly on their head and make silly faces in the mirror just to try to get them to feel something better or different, right? Or say the word bubble a million
Yeah,
times and it makes you laugh,
absolutely.
you know?
Hmm.
It disrupts
Oh, that's
that
a
thought
really funny.
process.
It's really funny you mentioned that, because that was, I think, one of, I didn't know it was OCD until, oh, and then Ren asked a question of, how did you, or did you figure out it was OCD and not anxiety?
Well,
And that
before that,
kind
we
of,
have an ad
yeah. And
really
I'll
quick. Yeah.
pause. Oh, I'll
Yeah, we'll
pause.
pause.
But it's really
Um,
interesting, Astrid, that you mentioned that, because I'll go into it after the ad. But that was something I did before I knew it was OCD, because I didn't know what the heck to do with it.
right. I do want to talk too about because you mentioned acknowledging that it is a spiral, but also talking about how you know it's a spiral, um, versus
Yeah.
what you said is a legitimate, real thought. And I think that was a
Hmm.
topic of our conversation last night that I think could be really interesting to discuss, because it might look
Absolutely.
different for other people. I don't really know. This is just what I noticed for you specifically.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Who knows? For somebody else, maybe that is their experience as well. And then we could basically say, hey, if you start to think this way, maybe it is a spiral, and that's helping someone, right? Um,
Hmm. I agree. No, full. This is. It's also really cool to see people say like, "Oh, I got diagnosed with OCD." I'm like,
mm-hmm.
"Oh my."
It's an immediate sense of, there are a lot of people, and I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but there are a lot of people around you that you don't know that probably have OCD. It's not as small
Absolutely.
of a world as we normally think. And I know, especially with so many people being more isolated these days, it can feel really lonely. But I do think there's once someone is brave enough to say, this is who I am, this is me, this is what I struggle with, people are inspired and they come out of the woodwork and say, yeah, me too. Because all of a sudden you're not alone anymore. And now it's not as scary to be the one person standing, but it is scary to be that one person standing. But when you do it, all of a sudden you're not standing alone, you're standing with a group of other people. So there's an astro tip specifically. If you're ever worried about
Mhm.
opening up about something or standing up for something that you believe in, think about the fact that once you do it, you're not going to be alone after the fact. People will come and they will be with you. You will have to be the one to say it first, but that does not mean you will be alone after you've said it. Um, Often it does not mean that. Also, welcome back from the ad. So, um, the interesting thing is, Ren said too, I relate so much to I want to fix that now. This is the thing, I was trying to explain this earlier about the difference between having a disorder and having aspects of that disorder. So I am
Mhm.
also, I historically am a fixer, right? I need to fix things as soon as possible. But I have been screened for OCD no less than 3 times, and I do not have it. And I'm not trying to have it, or I'm not saying I want to have OCD. I'm not saying I don't either. I just don't have it. Um,
Yeah.
but for me, that's more of a symptom of anxiety, and it has to do with my trauma about abandonment and people leaving if I made a mistake, and da 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 da. I could go on, but there is a part of it that it's very similar to OCD in that I will think about something, every single possible outcome of that thing, and I would do it to try to prepare myself. And the craziest thing was, oh my God, this just reminded me. I would say all the time that the way that I manage my anxiety was I would think about the worst case scenario and I would plan for that so that if anything better than that happened, then I would still be okay. But the issue is, and Pink and I have talked about this all the time, if you're planning for the worst case, you're sitting there anxious as hell about the worst case. You are
Yep.
scared. You are pre-grieving, you are pre-stressing. So it actually caused way more anxiety to think that way. What I had to do was learn to relinquish control. And for somebody like me that doesn't have OCD, that is a very different ballgame than for somebody that does. Um, and I don't know that I've ever been screened for it, but I got a diagnosis for a perfectionist personality disorder. So I also have aspects of perfectionism. I don't know if I have a disorder about it, but that is what came up with my neuropsych very consistently. Um, but is that I'm a very big perfectionist. If I plan for the worst case, I can go and relax because I'm prepared. It may work differently for you because that's your mental health. But for me specifically, I recognized all of a sudden, wait, when I'm in moments of high stress and I'm saying, okay, the worst thing happens, I lose my house or I lose my job, um, I will sit there and say, okay, well, I'm planning to lose my job. And then for the next week, I'm saying, okay, so I'm going to have no money. So I need to make a ton of money right now or find another job right now because the timeline's super short. And then I freak out. But that's me, right? No, and you don't need to apologize. It's just, I think that's the point of this conversation is that I want to open up a space where people can have a difference of opinion or experience, and it's safe. It's totally fine.
Absolutely.
If it works for
Hmm.
you, that's wonderful. But there's also another group of people like me who I realized that wasn't helpful for me. I thought it was, and the logic behind it made sense to me, but it wasn't helpful. Yeah. So I want to get back to Ren's question, their original question. But I do want to touch on while we were in the ad, I was saying, you said when Pink, you said that when it's important when you have a spiral or when you start to spiral to acknowledge it, to say something about it to somebody else. But
Yes.
how do you identify if you're in a spiral or if it's a quote unquote genuine or rational thought?
I love this question. This is a beautiful question because it's something that I struggled with forever because it was very difficult for me to categorize my thoughts and say, this is a real thought, quote unquote, although all the thoughts are real and I don't know if there's a better way to describe it. And this is an OCD spiral.
Mm-hmm.
Part of some of my conversations with you have been very helpful. And this is something I also talked with my therapist about where I'm like, I don't know if I'm quote unquote allowed to have this thought versus if I need to stop it. One of the things that is now very helpful is this, if this, then that.
Mm-hmm.
So that structure of a question, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this happens, then that's going to happen, and then if that happens, then this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Which we kind of talked and identified as like this is a very slippery slope,
Mm-hmm.
and that. But the other part is also like you can also know that you're in a spiral and you're not just thinking if it feels urgent. Right? If I
Okay.
need clarity now, I can't relax until I figure this out. You start to go in circle. There's nothing that's progressing. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I'm realizing now is you're not really looking for like a rational truth or conclusion to reach to. You're looking for relief. I kind of sometimes am noticing that I'm looking for some way where I can untie the loop of questions I'm having and be able to reach to this thing that says, okay, this is what I can do. Now I feel better. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is though, you're never going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that the I think the relief seeking is another big one. Like you're not really looking for understanding or trying to get to some like source of truth. It's more so just a desire to feel good again. And which is like it's a compulsion.
Okay. So it seems like, and we talked a little bit about this too, that, and this is my understanding of mental health. So if there's a mental health professionals watching, I am not a mental health professional. This is my understanding. I'm being very clear. But the way that it's been described to me through many, many years of therapy with different therapists is that mental health disorders, they exist as a response, a lot of them as a response to trauma. Some of them are congenital or neurodevelopmental, so you're born with them basically. But many of them, their genesis is some kind of trauma, or they're a protective mechanism that your brain develops in order to address stress or pain or what have you. However, when it becomes disordered, right? Because you think about that, you think, okay, there's nothing wrong with it. But when it becomes disordered is when it starts having that negative, consistent impact on your day-to-day life. It becomes maladaptive instead of adaptive. So something that is actively harming you versus giving you that actual sense of relief. Because from my perspective, there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting relief from stress, but the way that you are seeking that relief can become problematic and actually cause the opposite of relief and really will cause more pain.
Correct.
And that is kind of the crux of a mental disorder, from my understanding, like OCD, is that
Mm-hmm.
the way that it's gone about is the harmful part. And I once had a therapist that told me, and I will issue trigger warning really quickly. I'm going to use an abbreviation and I won't go into detail, but this is kind of a spicy take, and I'm ready to share it, and I'll take responsibility for the fallout for it. But it's my honest truth. I had a therapist who explained to me I would SH for a long time, happened for a long time. And I've always told it was bad. That's a bad thing. Don't do it. Right? Unless I could get into some trauma around it, but I'm not going to do that. But by and large, the quote unquote therapeutic idea around SH was that it's a bad thing, right? Don't do it. It's a bad thing. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with saying that, because I wouldn't say it's a good thing. But my mind was kind of changed when this therapist of mine for the first time said, that is it was an effective tool that you had at the time. It did the job that it needed to do. However, and this is important, however, it was causing you harm. And the goal is to create coping mechanisms and processes that minimize harm as much as possible. So we want to replace that maladaptive coping strategy with something that is helpful. And for me, hearing that, number one, made me feel like it made a sense of guilt lift that I was doing something awful, right? Number two, it gave me an actionable step to take in order to help myself feel better. And one of the things I notice when you and I are talking, Pink, is that not only, do you feel bad because of the symptoms of OCD, but then you get down on yourself for having OCD instead of accepting it as a neutral part of yourself. And it's sort of a double whammy of trauma and pain. And it's so reasonable. I mean, who of us hasn't done it? I do it all the time. I get down on myself all the time. I'm my own worst critic. But I think there is something to be said about, yes, OCD is harmful to you. It's also a part of you. It's also a kind of like a coping system that your brain developed in order to deal with a situation where you didn't have other tools. Right? Do you think, is that fair to say, or would you say it's more intense than that? What do you think about that statement?
I think that's very fair to say. I think the part of my brain that's like desperately wanting to villainize this aspect of myself is like, no, I hate it. I want it gone and eradicated. But that's not a very, not only is it not productive, but it just puts you in a very sad mindset all the time.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're grieving a version of yourself that you think could have existed. And I don't know. That version might have existed and might have not. I might have been a totally different person. I might have not. I will say, having a group of people that are, again, this is part of what I mean by support network. I was very alone for like a huge portion of my life. And don't think that helped me. A part of me was like, yeah, but I'm not getting triggered. Okay, yes. And then I talked about this with my therapist too. You're also severely decreasing your comfort zone.
Right.
So everything then, if you try to do anything, it feels like you're going through war. Like your body does not differentiate between I am having a conversation with a friend and I'm a little stressed and I am actively in a war zone. Like that is what your body gets used to, because it knows, okay, if I get stressed about this, she's going to stop doing the thing that is stressing me out right now. So I'm going to send signals to her that are going to feel horrible so that she stops doing the thing that she's doing. And part of that is also just like sitting with the discomfort, which I don't like. I don't like doing it, but it's necessary. That's part of the work.
It's part of the growth. And I think that is such a universal issue for so many people for so many reasons, because I'm also in therapy discussing sitting with discomfort and uncertainty. And I think that's part of the thing, again, having an aspect of a disorder, there is so much more that we can connect with as human beings in our experiences than we can't. Which I think when you have conversations like these, all of a sudden you start to realize, and I remember you and I have talked about this sometimes too, that you thought that was just a you thing, or that was just an OCD thing, or what have you. And I would say, no, I do think that way too. It's not just you. It's different for you. Your experience is different, but I do think that way. And I have sucked with sitting with uncertainty and unknowns. And humans as a species, we don't do well with this. It's one of the things that we struggle with the most is the unknown, right? That's why, people fear death. It's why, people fear hard meetings at work, or they fear that sudden Slack notification that tells them it's an all hands or whatever, what have you, because you don't know what's going to happen. Sorry if I triggered anyone talking about JOBs.
JOBs.
But, it's a universal human experience. I think it just manifests very differently depending on the type of person that you are. But I'm doing the same thing, sitting with uncertainty, sitting with discomfort. And instead of trying to fix it or trying to get rid of it, expanding my capacity to sit with it, allowing it to exist without demonizing it. And because discomfort is part and parcel of life. I mean, it is a part of life. Uncertainty is a part of life. Biggest source of uncertainty, we don't know what happens after we die, right?
Yep.
We're not. I hope that we don't know. I hope that stays an unknown. I hope certain things stay unknown. But that's my own opinion. But no matter what, there will always be something that we don't know, and so we have to be able to um, sit with that and not necessarily become comfortable with it, but become able to do so without spiraling out of control. Um, and validating ourselves in the sense not that necessarily this thing is true or that it isn't true, but just that what we're feeling and what we're experiencing is real and for good reason. And I shouldn't sit here and try to attack it because it's not helping me either way.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's very different for OCT because you've described that it's you're trying to answer something that really doesn't necessarily have an answer because the question will change once an answer, quote unquote, answer is reached. Um, Now, so we talked about how you identify an OCD thought versus I have here quote unquote a rational or real thought.
Hmm.
You talked about that if then pattern. Talked about this sense of urgency, that you need clarity or an answer to this question now. Otherwise, it feels like a life or death, like you said, a war scenario. Um,
Hmm.
and that you're not really looking for a rational truth. You're looking for relief. So we talked
Yes.
about how to identify these patterns. We've talked about what they are and how they can be themed and how they can shift and change, how to break out of them. But what is it like to actually sit in an OCD thought spiral from, if you can, from start to finish? And I think let's touch on that. We just got an ad break, but I think that would be a really interesting process to describe.
Yes, absolutely. I'll wait for the ad. And I think I'll also answer I'll touch on Ren's question real quick as well in the midst of that because I think it goes hand in hand a little bit.
Okay. I also saw Max came in, I believe. Hello, Max.
Hi, Matt.
Fortunately, I have to head out. Thank you, big time, Pinky, for talking so openly about this and Astro for this beautiful format. I very much appreciate it. Aw, I appreciate you so much. I really love that you've been hanging out with us. I really enjoy your presence in streams a lot, and I hope whatever you're up to is fun and that you have a good rest of your day. But thank you for joining. You asked some really good questions.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm honestly like when it comes to questions, I think you're the same, Astro, but I love people asking questions. It feels really good for me at least. I feel like if because like especially with the community that you have, everyone's just very genuine. Like the questions they're
Hmm.
asking are coming from a very genuine place, and I that's so rare. It's
Hmm.
so rare that you get like actual genuine questions of like I just want to learn more.
Hmm. I find it kind of funny because um, that you and I talked about this too. That's part of why I wanted to do this format is that it was bringing me back to my roots in streaming, where that I think the reason why my community feels that way is because that's how I was. And I think I lost touch with that a little bit over time. And I wanted to come back to it. And I wanted to come back to it in a way that I felt like had some benefit to myself and to everybody else. Ideally, I want to see this format evolve to where I can have activists or, subject matter experts, right? Doctors or what have you. I want to have all kinds of people here to have some really interesting discussions because I think I'm really tired of seeing such complex parts of life get condensed into sort of the TikTok format of, 20-second text post of how mental health is supposed to work or how,
Mhm.
socio-political issues work. So much of the
Oh
nuance
my
is
god.
lost and
Yeah.
people don't see it's not a conversation on the internet so much anymore.
No,
It's
it's
a
not.
battle.
It's a battle and it's a statement, which like a lot of the times it can't be a statement. It does need to be a conversation. There does need to
Right.
be some back and forth. There needs to
Mhm.
be questions. There needs to be so much more. And now it's just I have this opinion. and my opinion's right. Bye. It's like, okay,
Right. There
well, I
is
don't
one
know what to
correct
do with
opinion,
that.
and if you don't have that, then prepare to lose your job, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Although
it's
I'm not
just
saying there are people
it's
that
not
don't deserve
healthy.
that, but
True. But I mean, there's nuance. A lot of the situations, of course, there's, the stragglers, which is like, you deserve to not be employed anymore. Um,
right.
but
Right. Like if you own a
uh,
dog bathing business and you beat animals, yeah, get
oh my
fired,
God,
get dunked
I
on.
remember that. That was
I
insane.
know.
Yeah, that's different. But there's also
Yeah.
sometimes where I'm like, wow, this situation could really benefit from a little bit of care and compassion and
Right.
this ability to take in more information.
Right.
Like that's why I always say, like, I love people. I've had people ask, like, send me messages sometimes, like, is it okay if I ask you this? And I'm like, yes, you can ask me things, that's okay.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Also, Max said didn't want to interrupt because what you were saying was interesting. No worries. That's totally fine. I'm trying to pause at decent times. I really gotta go. Okay, bye. All right, Ren. It was great to have you. Also, hi, Biscuit. You guys look so professional. We're interviewing. We're interviewing today. Thank you. I worked too hard on this overlay to make it look as good as
It looks
possible.
so good. I love it. I'm here with my cup of tea. Sorry, hopefully I'm gonna
I was
spill it and
working in
break your
Canva.
things.
I was inside her. Okay, never mind. I didn't say
All right.
that.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Back it up.
Astro's gaming while he
I'm
interviews. I
calling
could
HR.
toggle that actually. I think. What is it? Oh shoot! I could toggle off my keyboard.
Take
In
your
fact, I
little mouse
planned-
and keyboard. You're typing.
It's true. I'm taking notes, so there is that.
Yeah.
It's so cool to hear you actively encourage questions. I want a conversation. Ask any question. It's not stupid.
Yeah.
The first person who asked a question in here was asking, what is OCD? Right? And okay, let's answer the question. I find a lot of the time as well, and it's nuanced, I will say, because if for example, if I was in a TikTok comment section and somebody was talking about having OCD and I went, what is OCD? I'd be like, okay, well, you could have Googled that, right? You could have looked that up. And now you're just asking somebody else to answer the question for you. However, I'm also an adult man. And if I in real life was sitting there talking about having, for example, autism, and a 12-year-old came up to me and asked, what is that? I'm not going to go, you idiot, you should have Googled it. I'm going to answer the question.
Yeah.
You don't
Exactly.
know who it is on the other side of it. And the question is not a harmful question. Expecting that somebody else does labor for you kind of gets a little bit murky. But then I just think it's developing a culture of people should ask questions to themselves. And this was something, this is something I've thought a lot about. I have a lot of children in my life for one reason or another. And I have found that especially the American education system, they are not encouraged to ask questions and investigate on their own. They're encouraged to basically get the answers through some mnemonic or through some, basically some process that's manufactured for them. But when I was a kid, I would have my book and a dictionary right next to me because I wanted to know what that damn word meant right then and there. I'm not going to go, hey, what does this word mean? Hey, what does this word mean? I was like, I want to figure this out right now. I want to figure this out right now on my own because I want to understand it as I'm reading the book. I don't see that culture a lot anymore. Not even with just young kids, even with, even when I was in high school, the culture in high school was not about learning and expanding your mind. It was really a lot of the time just about getting through the damn thing. So a lot of the times that triggers an immediate reaction. True. I get why, but it's still cool. Also, Googling is different than learning what it's like for that specific person. This is also very true. That's a very good point. Because,
Yes.
Max, you weren't here earlier, but we went over for Pink in particular. Her OCD is more centered around obsessive thinking, not as much compulsions. So we had some people talk about friends with compulsions and what that looks like. Not saying you do or don't have compulsions, just that, it's more so obsessive thoughts.
Yes,
So it's
mine is
different for
more in the
everybody.
category of pure O. But yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think it's really, that's why I really like this conversation, because for a lot of people they think, oh well, I don't have it then because I don't wash my hands, or I'm not, like, the most common one is, oh, I'm just really organized and clean or whatever. but it can be a lot of different things. If you are unable to get yourself out of X, Y, or Z kind of thoughts, then it's something to think about. You might not have it. It might be something else. Sometimes it is coupled with different types of disorders, but that's why these kinds of conversations are so important to me, because I feel like it's giving people the space to not only learn but also have somewhere safe they can ask questions of a specific person. My experience is not going to be the standard experience for everybody.
Right, exactly. And I think also, part of it is giving them a safe place to stumble. Um, and again, kind of a hot take, but I will take the fall for this hot take. There are people in my life who genuinely mean well, and I know that they mean well, but they are ignorant. And I mean ignorant in the literal sense. They just don't know about something. And because they don't know about something, they make mistakes. They're genuine mistakes. For example, Pink and I were talking about this earlier. My nephew is trans, and he's recently come to the understanding that he's trans. Now, for me, it's a lot easier to switch to a new set of pronouns and a new name because I've done that a million different times for plenty of people in my life. I use alternative pronouns, by the way. My pronouns are he, they, although he is preferred most of the time. My gender is a slightly masculine shaped blah, but we don't need to get into that right now. But there are people in my family who do not accept my nephew for who he is. There are people that do and make genuine mistakes and say, oh shoot, I shouldn't have said that. And they ask questions like, what is that thing that he's wearing? What is it doing for him? That's not demonizing it. It's trying to understand. And sometimes I can say, it's not really something that you need to know. It's personal to him. I will just say it's helping him feel better. But there are some times where I can say, that's doing this function and it's making him feel better in his skin, right? And that's enough of an answer for people who genuinely mean well. So again, if somebody hopped in to this chat right now and said, what is OCD? And somebody did, just ask the question, answer the question. And if they ask a question it's a genuine question, but it's said with ignorance, or it mentions something ignorant, I think it's fair to give them space to make a mistake. Now, if they repeat the mistake, that's no longer a mistake. But there is one, you can basically ask a question. If it's ignorant, it's ignorant. We can say, hey, that's, it's a little ignorant. We'll use this as a learning moment and then move forward. They repeat it, or they say something obviously awful, like a slur or something like that, then, I don't have tolerance for that kind of a thing. But school is very get the answer or risk getting it wrong. Exactly. School is very much about shame now. The Socratic method is popular for a reason. Dude, I love Socratic seminars. Grades especially is very punishing. You can get half of the information that you learn right. Because you don't get more than half right, you're considered basically having failed and not learned anything. True. I always get so irritated about this. 5 out of 10, you failed, and we're going to ignore the fact that you got half the information right. Yep. If they don't reward you, it's punishment. They don't reward you for a job well done. They punish you for a job not done well, or what they say is not done. So
well, school in general is also, I have some hot takes about schooling, but
oh, absolutely. I wanted to, we discussed the question of what is it like to sit in an OCD thought spiral. We talked about all the other aspects of it, but what is it like to be in it when it happens?
Oh boy. Okay, so for me, and this is, again, like, I'm trying to learn more about what it's like to sit with my physical self too, because a lot of the times, I do this a lot, Astro's seen it when I'm feeling really bad. I immediately go into, like, again, I'm trying to solve the thing, but when a spiral happens, I tend to turtle inwards a lot of the time. Now, this is not really related to the OCD part. It's more so just trauma, where I don't feel comfortable telling people that I'm going through a hard time because it immediately feels like I am, just the act of telling someone I'm not doing too great feels like I am telling them to do something. So I'm like, I just won't do it. So that's part of it, is I get very turtly, I'm like, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to fully go in. The other thing is it's very physical for me, which is I just won't move. I will be bedridden for hours and hours, sometimes days. There's times where it's lasted a week because I'm like, I don't want to talk about it and I need to fix this, and I will fix it. but I'm not really doing anything to fix it. Um, in terms of the actual brain itself, in terms of what's going on in my mind, it is, again, for me, I was like, part of the coming to terms with OCD is also learning that, like, while some people have aspects of OCD, I used to normalize and go, well, everyone goes through this and I just need to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beginning to realize more, like, not everyone goes through this exact specific set of
Mm-hmm.
emotions. So there was actually a video on TikTok, and it's part of why I'm trying to be more open about it, because those kinds of content actually ended up helping me very much. And it was literally like, for example, I'll wake up one morning and something had triggered me the night before or something. I saw something online, something someone said. I saw an article that sent me into, and it's one of my themes, for example. A lot of mine are relationship, and by relationship I don't mean romantic. It's a lot about friendships. So for example, let's say I see something and I'm like, oh, does this mean this person hates me? And then I will go to bed, I will wake up, and it's from start to the end of the day, it is, wait, so they said this in their message, does that mean they dislike me? Wait, they're in a call right now with someone else, does that mean they dislike me? Wait, so maybe I should message them. No, I shouldn't message them. Maybe I should message them. Imagine that, but the entire day. So it is getting very stuck in a loop. It's my therapist described it as a snake eating its own tail. There is no end. The end is doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
So
do
that is part of it.
Do thoughts ever repeat throughout the day? So for example, you said, should I message them, should I not? Would you do that, like go through a pattern, for example, go through a spiral, and then is it like you start the spiral with, for example, take that example, somebody is in a call without me, they're in a call with somebody else, does that mean they hate me? And then you keep going, and at some point you go, should I message them about this, asking if they hate me or not? And then you go, well, but what if I do that, then this might happen, and you start that spiral again and come back to, well, if I message them to ask, right? Did the thoughts repeat that way?
Absolutely. So what happens is, so let's say I effectively stop myself from reassurance seeking. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to message them and asking if they hate me. And I will sometimes even notice, like, okay, I think this is an OCD thing. The problem though is if you don't do anything different, like, again, if you just go, I think this is an OCD thought, I'm just going to do something else. But the thing is, it will malform into something else. So then I'll feel a little bit better. Maybe I'll even have like a normal conversation with that person. But because I'm not addressing that I'm in a spiral and I'm just going, I think it's OCD, maybe. I don't know. This feels kind of real though. Maybe they do hate me. It will just malform into another thought. So not only can they be very cyclical, but they will also just continuously branch. Again, this is the part of the goalpost changing. Because every time you'll go, okay, maybe this one is OCD. And the next thought that comes out, you're like, wait, maybe this one's real. Maybe this is the real one. Maybe I have to focus on this one and fix this one.
But that you've described is meta OCD, so having obsessive thoughts about your obsessive thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? And I think touching on that a little bit could be interesting, but I want to see what some folks are saying here. And Max, I know what you meant with that, the statements you were making. What do you mean when you say you'll fix this?
Great question. So the thing with Pure O is, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like, again, this is mostly my thoughts around a lot of like ROCD, harm OCD or whatnot. You want to do something, quote unquote, fix it to give yourself relief. So if that can look something like reassurance seeking, like I'm going to ask them if they're mad at me. I'm going to ask them if this or that. I'm going to ask them if they think I'm ugly. I'm going to ask them if when, this and that. It's this insane sense of urgency to fix the feeling that you're having so that you're no longer having the feeling.
Sorry, I just let courage out. I am back, and I was listening.
No, you're fine.
And that inherently demonizes whatever it is, the feeling that you're having as well, that it needs to be fixed, right? And you talked to that it's not really something that needs to be fixed. I think we talked about just sitting with it. It's not something to eradicate. It's something build up to being able to sit with. Ouroboros, yes, that's exactly what I was thinking, Biscuit. It's wild how close that is to some borderline symptoms, actually. So I've had this thought sometimes, and I haven't said this as much, but it does remind me of that. My mother has borderline personality disorder, and some of it very much sounds like things that she would do in her head, especially with regards to relationships. So oh, there's an ad break. I'll pause. But this is a very interesting topic because I have thought about this. And there are similarities, but I think there are key differences too to note. But that's not to say, I mean, OCD and BPD can be comorbid in anybody.
Absolutely, 100%.
I just wonder how hard it gets to for the medical professionals to be able to say, are these comorbid disorders, or are they one disorder that has some unique traits or overlap in certain areas, you know?
It's very difficult, and I know we're in an ad break and I can repeat any of this, but even with OCD, trying to get OCD diagnosed is also incredibly difficult. I mean, in general, as a quote unquote femme person, can be very difficult to get diagnosed with anything because they're like, you're maybe on your period. Like, I don't know, go take birth control and like lay down and put a heat pad on your brain until it explodes. That's not what they say, but it is very difficult in general to get diagnosed with a lot of things. So I don't know. There's a high chance that some of these have overlaps, or they like some of the stuff that I have. My therapist was like, "This is a Venn diagram. Typically, when this person has this and this, they will also have X, Y, and Z. But it's just hard to get diagnosed with them because of many different reasons."
Yeah, I mean, in general, getting diagnosed with anything is hard enough, but any kind of overlap too just makes it 10 times harder. So Max was saying, I think the reason there are similarities is because they start at the same place in the brain, and the reason the difference is there is because they have different causation. This is actually a decent question. So borderline is caused by trauma. That is the genesis of borderline personality disorder. Is it true for OCD as well, or are there other causes?
So with OCD, when it comes to cause, are we talking about like, I guess, how it comes about?
Yeah, can you be born with OCD? Does there have to be trauma in order to have OCD?
There's some...
What can happen?
Like, yeah. So, yes, there's some articles out there that like they try to do research into what part of the brain like is X, Y, or Z for it to cause OCD, but it's kind of a chicken or egg thing where it's like, well, we don't know if it's the brain is like this because of this, or you are born this way, basically. So that part, there's a lot of like,
I don't
want to say
know.
a ton of research. Yeah, they don't know. They don't know if like it's because of this or this. But my opinion, and this is again just for me, and there's a lot of, I think, research you can potentially look into when it comes to like how it comes about. I think that it is something like a brain that's wired to, I don't want to use the word overreact, but it's a way to, I think you use the word protect. I think protect is a better word. Kind of protect you from uncertainty. And there are life experiences that have happened to a person that teach you that, oh, by thinking things to this degree, you were able to protect yourself. So I'm now used to doing that.
Potentially also a brain that is, from what you're describing, one that seeks patterns, right? One that operates well with patterns, because it's very much a thought pattern. And those patterns help with prediction and protection as well, because they give you a sense of control and constancy, right? So if I see this, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. It gives you an answer to uncertainty. Okay, so it's kind of interesting because I just did a really, really quick Google, and it was basically describing that there are a complex set of factors that go into OCD and to the manifestation of it. but there was not a singular cause or root singular causes.
You know?
Um, they trigger the same part of the brain biologically. No, I know what you meant there too. I was just curious to see, because with borderline, there has to be trauma. That is the one piece of borderline that is certain, that it is caused by trauma. There isn't a consistent kind of trauma. Normally, a very severe trauma causes borderline, but severe is super subjective, and we talked about that too. So, borderline there has to be trauma involved. Now, there is also something to be said about the structure and function of the brain, because not everybody who goes through trauma develops borderline. So with any mental health issue, I think there's sort of we don't know exactly why it happens, but we see, in basically 99% of cases that this is what happens, and therefore this is one of the causes. Science is not, even the laws of science are not absolute. They're absolute in terms of our observation and in terms of the rules of the world as we have defined them. Through lots of testing, so there's nothing, don't disregard science. It's the best tool that we have by far, but especially with something like the brain, which we understand very little about, it's not really exact. But I did want to say, so it's very similar, especially when it comes to relationships. A lot of my understanding of BPD now is that folks with BPD are very obsessive in terms of their relationships and thinking about them. And they are very constantly concerned about, losing a relationship or abandonment, basically. Whatever that looks like. And so they will obsess about, well, if I do this, then I'm going to lose them. If I do this, then I'm going to lose them. Do they hate me? Do they hate me? Do they hate me? That is a very common thought to have in silence. And so folks with BPD will kind of do that battle that you describe of, should I message? Should I not? Am I going to be annoying? Am I not going to be annoying? Are they going to hate me if I do this? Do they hate me now? That is very, very common with BPD. And because there is an attachment issue with people with BPD with regards to their close relationships. Excuse me. There's what they call a favorite person. So a lot of people with BPD have a favorite person. That's often a romantic partner or a family member. It could be a friend. But it's this person where they basically believe that they cannot function without them. And that person, they are constantly monitoring that person's behavior to see, do they hate me? Do they not hate me? Right? Am I screwing up somehow? And it spirals into something that is, it is unhealthy because it's disordered thinking. But with the thoughts about, friendships in particular, and does this person hate me? If I do this, are they going to hate me? Right? That is very similar to the thought process I've heard in BPD, which I thought was really interesting to hear about.
That is really interesting. I didn't know there was an overlap. But yeah, that's also like a big part of relationship OCD is you get like, I feel like a lot of it too is not so much, and I know it's obsessive compulsive disorder. It's not so much that you're obsessed with the person. Like for me, it's almost like this happened in my first relationship ever. I was constantly scared that, do I even have feelings for this person? Like it's questioning about everything. You don't trust your own feelings even. And then you start to spiral about that. Like, do I love them? Do I not love them? Am I like secretly like, do I hate them and I want them to die? So, and then that just spirals constantly. Like, and it's something that you just have to kind of eventually learn to be better with sitting with that uncertainty and kind of, but it's very difficult to trust yourself. I was gonna say, and learning to trust yourself and your emotions. But the problem is like, it takes a long time to get there because I do not most of the time trust my own feelings because it's hard for me still to categorize. I'm getting better at it, but it's still very difficult to know, is this just an OCD thing or is this how I really feel?
Yeah, you don't know. It takes practice with any kind of with any kind of word. It takes time. Max says, as far as I've read, BPD specifically usually appears in people with boundary and or neglect trauma specifically. Not always, by the way. I'm quite BPD diagnosed, and it manifests in different ways sometimes. It's more the general framing of the loop that seems similar. Yeah, okay. I didn't know about the specificity of the trauma. I just knew that trauma needed to be involved. So that's interesting. Boundary and or neglect trauma specifically. So that does track with my mother. especially the way she talks about it. Um,
Mm.
so, um, for I guess there are some. It's interesting how some mental health disorders have these very explicit, you know, geneses and diagnostic criteria, and there are some that are like, uh,
Yeah, no.
maybe I don't know. We don't know
It is.
yet.
And this is part of what I thought was really cool because I did Google this and to try and see like, is there some kind of part of the brain that is just a little weird or wonky when it comes to people with OCD? And this is what I meant when I was saying. So this is from iocdf.org. And I don't know again how accurate this is or not. I think what they're saying is pretty like neutral in my opinion. Like they don't go really hard one way or another. But they were saying like images of the brain have revealed some differences between people with OCD and those without it. But these differences are small and not consistently observed. So this is kind of what I meant is like they're saying it's partly due to a chicken and egg issue. So many brain imaging studies don't clarify whether these differences cause OCD or are caused by OCD. So they don't know like, oh, did this person already have OCD and then that's what caused it? And by caused it, so they did research and they showed that parts of the brain that were affected by OCD included the orbitofrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, if I'm pronouncing any of this wrong, please excuse me, the thalamus, and the basal ganglia. So the OFC, which is the first one that I mentioned, is involved in shaping thoughts, memories, emotions, and in like intuition, your gut feelings, also known as the visceral state. The ACC helps you detect and predict errors. It helps with attention, motivation, memory, and emotion. The thalamus sends signals to the brain that relate to physical movement and sensation. And then the basal ganglia helps us plan and carry out actions and behaviors. With people with OCD, they notice that there's a lot of overactivity in these parts of the brain. So again, is there like a direct, yes, this is what you're missing, that's why you got this? No. They don't know if it's someone already had OCD and it just messed with those parts of the brain due to extreme stress, or if that is what they were born with and that's why they have OCD. So just something I thought was interesting. There's also no, like they looked at environmental factors and whether that had it, but again, there's also non-shared environments that had a small effect and different things. So with this one, it was kind of, oh, they're just kind of like, we don't know. It could be one or the other. Good luck. Have fun
When you
with that.
say, you know, could it be that somebody already had OCD and stress, you know, caused it to happen? Do you mean that they were basically like it was almost dormant and then activated by some external circumstances? Or
Yeah, potentially, yes.
that
I mean,
okay.
that's what it was like for me. And actually, I'm gonna lead to Ren's question real quick. I know they're not here, but they asked, "How did you know?" I have known
Mm,
I have not known that I've had OCD until college. I did know that something was off since I was about 8.
mm,
And I talked about this with my friends recently, which was when I was 8 years old. I saw a movie, and I think I've actually found the name of the movie, but I don't remember right now. But I saw a movie, and there was a gross scene in it where this guy like falls into poop.
mhm,
I could not stop thinking about that scene for I think a week and a half, maybe more. I couldn't sleep. That scene, I kept replaying it. I thought it was gross, which is very standard with OCD. It attacks things that either you care about or don't want. So for me, ew, poop, gross, icky.
mhm,
As a child brain, it was like, okay, you hate this. I'm saying I'm gonna make you, but the part of my brain that is responsible for this was like, I'm going to think about it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on end. It was
mhm.
nonstop. I couldn't sleep. I was waking up crying. I was like distraught. Um, and this is another funny thing because I didn't know I had it, but I knew that this sucks and it feels bad in my little 8-year-old body. And it's funny that Astro was mentioning like you're gonna do some kind of ridiculous things like saying bubble out loud or putting something funny on your head. I started thinking about watermelon and like fruit because it was the only thing that I could think of at the time to stop the thought. So I was like, okay, this is an icky thought. I'm going to replace it with a thought that I like. And in
Mm,
that case, it was, I'm going to think about watermelons. So
mm. So
I
there
found
weren't
out in
any.
college. Yes,
Oh, go for it.
I'm
Sorry,
going to take a
sorry.
pause. Go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
I I wanted to ask, do your parents have any insights as to any other observations that, when you were younger than that age, anything that could have indicated that this was going on or that something was maladaptive? Or is it really just that was the first sign and that was it after that you knew something was wrong and it continued forward?
Um, that I don't know, honestly. Like for them, there's like times where I would again like wake up at the night and I'd be like, "Mom, I can't stop thinking about this. Can you like come like hold me or something like
Mm,
that." However, there was never like, "Oh, we noticed this and this could possibly be it." Um, but even growing up, like if I would get a crush on someone, it wasn't just like I have a crush on someone. I'd be like, will they like me if like do you think they said this at lunch today? Does that mean they like me or does it mean they don't like me? And it wasn't like for a lot of people that's like, oh, that seems kind of like that's fine. That's a question you asked. But it would I wouldn't stop is the thing. Like it would go and go and go. Like I was obsessed, for
right.
example, to going to Japan, right? And you're like, that seems like pretty like that's fine. You want to go to Japan? I wouldn't stop talking about it constantly. Like to the
Mm,
point where people around me were like, okay, we get it. Stop it. You want to
mm,
go to Japan. So there's stuff like that that I think were indicators into like something seems off. Like she's very anxious all the time about very mundane things. Um, I don't know if that answered your question, but there was never a thing of like, something seems a little meh. They were just like, okay, you seem just anxious.
I mean, it could potentially be something to explore further to see if there were any signs earlier on. And it's not to say that, your parents will have all that information. These things happened a long time ago. And they may not have been their focus, but you never know. Sometimes when people review memories or periods of life with new information in the present, they can go, oh, wait, actually, there was this moment. And then maybe, it was there for a longer period of time and it may just not have felt the same way in your body, right? Because from my understanding of human development, we start to develop a sense of individuality and empathy, and our emotional development really starts to tick up at around 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old. And at that point things can get a little, that's when we start to see some, if there's maladaptivity, that's when it would start to present itself in smaller ways. And if it's left unaddressed, it would continue to get even worse into teenagehood, because that's when all the hormones are added to the mix, and then there's that very intense feeling of rebellion and independence. It just kind of comes to a height, and all the change and relationships and what have you. um, so it's interesting. I've also said the same thing, that a lot of very formative things that happened to me happened around the age of 8 years old. I say that a lot. And I've always thought about that. Now that I'm talking about it, I actually think that literally has to do with human development. That would be the time that I would start to feel things more deeply, have more independent individual thoughts, have more of a complex concept of the world around me and how I felt about things. Um, and so it's interesting that that was kind of the same time frame for you for OCD. I don't know if
Hmm.
that means anything, but
It is interesting though. It is something that I think I would love to kind of bring it up and see like, hey, did you guys notice anything from my
yeah,
childhood that might have indicated this, and that? And it's like, I think we talked about this too. It's so hard to one, get diagnosed, but trying to get a child diagnosed.
right,
Oof.
right, yeah. And then there's the issue of, is it ethical to give you medication when you're so young? That la la la.
Hmm.
We are in an ad, but we do have some
Yes.
questions. We have other questions we can get back to. But I do, context by why I would know about when that development would start, and
Yes.
what to look out for in those time frames. Um, I read a book once. Oh, the signal's back. That's off topic. But anyway, Biscuit says, welcome back from the ad, by the way. Biscuit says, throwing another thing into the hat. I've heard and seen when it comes to people getting diagnosed, gender and race playing a part in how people are diagnosed too. Was that your experience?
My experience or Biscuit's experience?
No, yours.
Oh, I mean, in general, getting diagnosed with anything has always been an absolute nightmare from like forever. I can't remember a time where trying to get a medical professional to listen to me has ever been an easy process, which is sad. It is a bit of a bummer to say the least. But for me, 100%, and I'm I also have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. A lot of, I think, people suffer with it, or at least it's pretty well known. I think it's not something that's super not heard of, but it was awful trying to get diagnosed with that. It was very hard, and I knew like there was something not right. I've known about it since I was 15. And every time I would try to get diagnosed, there was a lot of, first of all, none of the doctors would agree with each other, which I understand they're going to have different opinions, but like one would be like, you just need to like get exercise and like take a nap and you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. The others would be like, no, we're going to put you on like this medication. By the way, you might get cancer. And I was like, huh? Okay. Is there one that won't give me cancer? I don't really want to get that. And there was no like, I feel like there's a lot of lack of care in the medical field, which is sad to say. That is not something you want to be lacking in the medical field. But it's very callous. It's very, kind of, they treat you like a piece of meat almost, and they're like, I'm going to inject you with a bunch of stuff and we'll see if it works, or if that even, because sometimes they'll just be like, I don't know, go figure it out, go like take a run, just lose some weight. I don't know.
Right.
Lose some weight is a very common one, which there are cases where losing weight is helpful, but also like maybe look a little bit deeper into it.
Right.
But yeah, for me, getting diagnosed has always been a bit of a struggle. And there's also the aspect of like it being taboo, and do you want to label yourself, which I don't agree with. I don't agree with that mindset at all. It's not running for a label or trying to add more labels to yourself. It's trying to understand why you are the way you are. And if you don't want to call yourself that, that's fine. But knowing what it is and having something to call it, for me, has been very helpful.
I mean, you can also, there are very specific treatments for OCD, and there are even medications, right?
Yes.
That can treat very specific symptoms of it. So that's the thing, is that I do think diagnosis can be very helpful in many, many, many circumstances.
Absolutely.
Because if there are medications available and specific treatments and whatnot, then you are directly addressing your symptoms, and you will directly start to feel better. It makes a concrete impact very, very quickly. There are some cases in which, a diagnosis is helpful for more emotional or mental reasons, to have something to label and to have something to understand yourself under, but there may not be very specific treatments, medical or medicinal or otherwise, that directly impact your symptoms. And in that case, it's more about, okay, well, is it that important to me to have a label if I have this label? That's kind of for me, it's more of always been a subjective experience of, is this really something that if I had the label on a piece of paper, it would make a positive difference in my life? But you don't always need the label to know that something is wrong. You know that something is wrong.
Exactly.
And that's why you seek the label. So it kind of becomes it's an individual, experience with diagnosis.
Yes.
Max asked,
your mileage may vary.
Yes. Max asked, so it's not so much about the question as it is how much you dwell on it. It's very generalized.
Yes.
So when talking about
no, that's exactly it. So I would say it's not so much the question, because I think a lot of these things are things everybody deals with. Oh, is my friend mad at me? Is this person, did I say something to upset them? The problem isn't so much the thought, it's this need to get immediate relief from it. Like if I don't get reassurance, And it's very physical too. Like my chest starts to tighten up. My shoulders feel really tight. This is something that I'm starting to also try to notice, is there is a physical aspect to it.
Right.
But yeah, it's not so much the thoughts and the questions and the thoughts in and of themselves. It's this desire to solve. It's this desire to get a solution out of it, which you cannot get and should not be searching for when you have OCD. This is part of why ERP is a thing, and I'll pause here, but ERP is one of like the gold standard therapeutic styles, I don't know how to call it, that is used for people that have OCD.
Yeah, and that's exposure response. What is
Yes.
it? Exposure response. What's the P?
Oh, what is the P? You're right. Exposure and response prevention.
Prevention. There we go. Also, welcome back, Damien. Welcome. Glad you're back. I think that's the case too with a lot of different disorders as well. It's that by themselves, for example, I'll use autism as an example. Disliking textures or flavors or feelings, even vehemently, doesn't inherently mean that you have autism, although that is a very common symptom of autism. What makes it autism, which it's autism spectrum disorder, is that it has such a material impact on your life as to negatively impact your life on a daily basis, right? So, for example, I am very incredibly noise sensitive. I have very sensitive hearing, and repetitive or constant noise gets me to the point where I literally can't think. My brain just shuts off, and I can go catatonic. I can stop speaking. I will literally just crouch in a corner of a room. I'll get migraines. It can get so bad, especially when I'm overwhelmed, that I can't function properly. But all people, I say all people, but 99.9% of people have an issue with certain kinds of sound, and it can even be a really bad issue, right? Misophonia is a disorder where you can't tolerate certain sounds because they will cause physical discomfort. It's still a disorder, but what makes it a part of autism is that it's in conjunction with the fact that it's a congenital disorder, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, and there are other diagnostic criteria. And that existing in isolation doesn't inherently mean autism. So it becomes a very, and again, like, for somebody with OCD, for example, if you hear a certain sound that could, I'm guessing, tell me I'm wrong. Let's say it reminds you of something, or starts you thinking about something being wrong. For example, you hear a beep that you're not used to hearing. You think, oh my God, is something broken? Wait, if it's broken, then how are we going to fix it? If we don't fix it, is the house going to blow up? Like that kind of a process. It all just depends. It's so highly variable and dependent on context and dependent on the brain and dependent on all these different things. That's why, honestly, people talk about psychological sciences as though, it's this squishy or less than science. But the reality is psychological scientists have to use so much more data just to be able to posit a theory, because it's so uncertain all the time. It's kind of a tangent. Biscuit can't stay for much longer though, but before Biscuit has to go, he's going to say it's been very informative and it's interesting to hear from people with different disorders and whatnot. I'm glad. That's the whole idea. I'm really glad. And this will be happening. My goal is every Wednesday, and I do have people lined up for future Wednesdays. It will not always be mental health related, but I hope to have people on who can speak about things with some level of authority. And I'm hoping that this can grow into having true subject matter experts on, so that we can have really cool conversations and learn a lot about people's experiences and science and all that good stuff. But I'm really glad.
I think what you're doing is really important, because again, I think I already mentioned this, but we don't have a lot of nuance online or an opportunity to be able to have conversations. It's very one-sided. It's very, I made a video and now you guys can comment whatever it is you want. And even those commenters can be very not nuanced. They will have a very, I follow this person, I agree with them, therefore I'm just going to parrot what it is they're saying. Versus I love that your community and what you've grown is very much like, oh, well, I don't agree with this, or what about this other perspective? It's nice to see that there's still spaces online that can exist, that can have nuance.
And I do think that the lack of nuance and the lack of critical thinking is it's such a plaguing issue today, especially with young people, that I really do hope this can become a space where contradictory opinions can meet within reason. I do not tolerate bigots. That's not an opinion. You're just a dumbass, and I hate you. If you're a bigot, then leave. I'm sorry. Go get somebody else to educate you, because there are some people who this is how I explain it. There are some people that are so incredibly ignorant and hateful. And a lot of hatefulness comes from ignorance, and I can acknowledge that. But it is too traumatizing to ask the person who is dealing with the thing or identifies with the thing that they are hating on to ask them to be patient and sit with them and answer questions, right? If somebody's going to call somebody slurs, if somebody's going to, say things that are inherently harmful, I don't want to host them. I don't want to have them here, and I don't want them in a comment section or having a discussion, because that's not helpful to anybody. They have work that they need to do that genuinely is not our responsibility. My hot take is that if you truly hate somebody because of some aspect of who they are, unless it's more of an objective thing, like if somebody is harming children in some way, in grotesque ways, then yeah, you should hate that really, really bad.
Yep.
It's gross and awful.
I agree with that also. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. It should go without saying, but in today's world, but also, as a part of, there are aspects of people that they cannot change, that aren't harming anybody. And if you really hate somebody for that, then that is a you need to be in therapy issue. Not a me needing to host you or tolerate you in my space issue.
I always get really confused by those like debate shows. I know we're kind of, you can stop me if we're veering too off track, but like, those debate shows where they bring just a bunch of people who are incredibly ignorant and very like not willing
Oh my
to
God,
have
Jubilee.
even a tiny. Thank you. That, okay, I forgot what the name was. Exactly that.
Yeah.
What exactly is the benefit of that to me? Like, I mean, there is a part of me that's like, yes, they're getting schooled, but another part of me is like, you're actively kind of putting people in danger and putting them in contact with people who kind of want them dead.
And they do sign release forms for that sort of a thing, but also it's not a constructive conversation by any means.
No, it's very like, I want you to say I'm right. Like, part of me is like, this kind of feels like it's like the embodiment of OCD, but very angry, where I'm like, all you're doing in that situation is you just want someone to say, no, I agree with you, you're right, I'm stupid. It's like,
and
I don't think this is.
That's not gonna happen.
No.
Not in that context. No way.
No,
I don't.
no.
That's the thing, is that I don't know that there's a single person from those types of shows that's actually had their mind changed when they walked off of it. And if you're trying to claim that you're an activist and you're trying to change people's minds and open up dialogue, if nobody is walking away from your space actually feeling that way, I think you need to shift your method.
I agree.
Max says, the label helps you know what to research in a way, and it's great that you chased it. I know how hard it can be when the mental health field keeps pushing for a labelless approach. What do you think about that? I
think for me, and again, I say for me a lot, but I'm hoping that is added to anything I'm saying today, this is for me. Mm-hmm. When I found out in college that there was a name for this and it was called OCD, it was a two-parter. I grieved a little. I was very upset because I felt like, well, if I had known earlier, maybe I could have done something different. Even now, there is a sense of like, oh man, if I had had a good therapist, maybe something would have been different. And part of that is getting into another OCD spiral. So I try not to sit with those thoughts for too long. But for me, it was a major, major thing. Oh my God, I was looking up forums and I'm like, oh, these people they're having the same things I have. Because like I said, OCD has a lot of different subtypes and themes, and they will fluctuate. Sometimes you're going to be dealing with something like harm OCD, or a lot of people it gets kind of misdescribed sometimes as like, there's a lot of memes, I think, at least on TikTok, where it's like my intrusive thoughts, teehee, and it's like, it's not teehee. This is very frightening and scary.
Right.
But for me, I was so excited to see, oh, there's other people that are like me and I'm
Right.
not fully alone. Of
Right.
course, then that was coupled with this sense of like, oh, I spent so long thinking that this is just a me thing, right? Like nobody else thinks this way. Or at sometimes I was like, no, everybody has some type of this, and I just need to be a big
Right.
girl and get through it. Um, so it was very, very complex. It was very confusing. I do think for it that the label ended up being more helpful than it was detrimental for me.
Mhm.
I Having a name for it was also granted me the ability to go get support for it, because
Yeah.
if I don't know what it is, how am I supposed to get
What are you
medication, for example? Yeah,
gonna
there's nothing I can do because I don't know what it is. I would just be
do?
like, I'm nuts and I'm having nutso thoughts. And it's like, no, you have this disorder that can make you feel like you're going insane sometimes, but there is support. You can go to therapy, there's support groups, there's people online that you can talk to. Although, always make sure, I'm putting an asterisk, be careful of who you talk to online as well. Sometimes I've seen in online spaces, and this may be a hot take, I do think sometimes too much support can also be a detriment. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that like your friends can't help you. I think your friends absolutely can help you, and it's wonderful. I'm very grateful for the friendships I have. I'm very grateful for Astro. I don't think I would have done a lot of the things I'm doing now if it wasn't for him. But at the same time, there is such a thing as relying a little bit too much on people and also getting the wrong type of support. So that is also necessary for, I think, folks to kind of just realize and sit with. I know we're in ad, so I'll pause, but
No, it's that reassurance seeking thing. I remember you talking about that.
mhm,
That
yeah.
if you get into these spaces, that nope. Sorry, that was courage.
Hi, Quit. Wait, I need to redeem pet.
Nope.
Hold on.
Touch. Yes, good boy. Yes, good boy. You need to redeem a
Where is
pet.
the pet? I want to redeem pet. There we go. Pet. Hey, pet.
All right, touch. Yes, good boy.
Yay.
Down. Yes, good boy. Wait. Yes, good boy. Good job. Touch. Yes, good job. You show smarty pants. You show smart pants. Hmm. Wait.
The Menacing Wonder Dog. Courage.
No.
Coming to theaters near you.
Yes. 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 Okay, all done. All done.
Oh, oh man, you got so tiny on this. I'm tall. I'm taller than you. Oh, never mind.
All right, welcome back. Yes, ad theft and Stawi. Nope. Courage, no. Come. Sit. It's good. No, be careful. Especially the thing is that people who have certain mental health disorders, they can know, and this is why I'm really hesitant. There are many reasons why I'm hesitant about this, but I am really hesitant to say that I enjoy when people give advice for dealing with certain mental health issues on the internet, especially if they're not a healthcare professional. What I would prefer to see is more people encouraging people to go to therapy, not saying that people can't give good advice, but they can say things that are not necessarily beneficial, that may be beneficial for them but not for every other person, and somebody tries it and it can cause harm. Or they can say
Yes.
things that are said in good faith but they end up being harmful. So, and I also
100%.
yeah.
I'm gonna interrupt you real quick just to add. A lot of people recommend manifestation and positive thinking. That does not work for OCD. It is literally like a death sentence for me, because if that thought I can make come true, then are all my bad thoughts coming true too? Because I do get stuck
Right.
in those spirals.
Yeah, and then it just spirals from there. No, I also dated somebody whose parent was a research psychologist, a PhD research psychologist, And she would explain that basically 100% of what is put out on social media, none of it has any scientific basis. It's just things people do to get clicks and interaction. That's not to say none of it can be helpful. It's just to say that none of it has any basis in actual observable science. So you have to treat that as almost like an addictive drug or like sugar, right? You go to it because it makes you feel good in the moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean having a bunch of it or using it is good for you in that moment or good for you long term. And I'm I used to get a little bit of heat for this too, because I would say things like, you really shouldn't be telling people how to deal with their mental health conditions without some basis in observable fact. Otherwise, you are kind of spreading misinformation. And as Max just said, it can be enabling, right? So especially, I think, in the
Yep.
context of OCD, if you are reassuring each other in those online spaces, that's not helping. It may make you feel good, but it doesn't mean it's actually helping you. So I do have kind of a very hot take about mental health social media. I do think there's plenty to be said about, somebody bringing light to certain disorders, so describing what they are using medical terms, referencing the DSM-5, referencing research, explaining different modalities of therapy objectively or neutrally, and saying, hey, these have been found to be helpful in a lot of different types of mental health conditions. That is amazing, and I want to see that. I want people to push people to therapy, please. Like, with all the love in my heart, go to therapy. And if you have a bad therapist, go to another therapist. I had Pink that said something similar. I had such bad experiences with therapists that I refused to see one again. And I've been to, let's see, as far as my memory is concerned, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've been to 7 different therapists in my life. And the large majority of them were not good. I liked 2 of them. I thought they were actually helpful. But the one of them that was helpful for a very specific set of circumstances. The other one, I love my co-therapist. Love her so much. Love her, love her, love her, love her. She's helping me through a lot of different things. But if you have a bad experience with a therapist...
7. Sorry.
Okay, shit. Okay, I'm gonna move past that. If you have a bad experience with a therapist, don't swear off therapy. Please keep trying, and just keep yourself safe and protect yourself, because it's so worth it.
Absolutely 1000%.
I don't think it's a hot take. It's a very grounded and rational one. Oh, well. Oh, I wish people thought that way. People forget that the 16-year-old you see on your feed isn't a psychologist. Correct. They are not a psychologist. That 16-year-old boy who's saying, hey, this is what women want, guys. If you want a girl, this is what you need to do. Or fellas, if you want to feel better, like, men have depression more than any other gender of people, and this is what you need to do for your depression. Hey, that's probably a twink who probably is just trying to get some clicks on social media. Let's be real, right? Let's be for real. I'm gonna go to sleep. Hope you all have a good day or night. You too. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had fun. I feel like it's very chill stream vibe today. Biscuit
Yeah,
isn't
it's
exactly
nice.
scared of therapy or therapists, nor opposed to trying to, and having to experiment seems like a headache. That makes sense. Do it when you... The
That's
thing
fair.
is, if you try to go to therapy when you are not ready to receive therapy, it's not going to work for you either. You have to be ready for it. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
The other thing, absolutely 1000%. The other thing is sometimes folks are like, I'm going to therapy, and why am I not getting better, for example, right? Or I'm just going to give up because I'm not seeing changes. Therapist is just going to give you the tools. You still have to go home and do all that stuff. You have to remember what it is they told you. You have to put all that stuff in practice. So I have like workbooks right now with my therapist that she just sent me, and I'm very excited to start doing them. But it's part of, partly it's you have to have a good therapist because they're not going to give you the good tools otherwise. And then the other part is you have to be ready for it. If you're mentally like, I am so fried, I don't feel like I'm going to actually be able to do the work, then you don't do it. Wait until, if you I mean, I still think it's good to go talk to a therapist either way, but if you really don't feel like you're in the headspace to get that information and do something with it, then
Right. For example, my therapist described it, and I find this very useful. If your capacity is at max, if your stress is at max in your body, you are not going to be able to do the hard work that therapy requires you to do, because it requires bandwidth, it requires capacity, right? It's hard. So the goal is to increase your capacity first, whether that's through medication or self-care or what have you. Um, if there are any other physically removing yourself from a traumatizing environment, whatever,
Mhm.
doing that to increase your capacity so that then you can come back and actually do the work that's going to help you feel better. Because if you try to make yourself do work that you're not ready for, you just end up feeling more stressed out. And it's actually traumatizing as well. And that, for me, this conversation about capacity has been a theme in my life recently, and it's been very helpful to frame it that way, because capacity is a temporary thing. So saying that I am not ready right now to do this thing, or that somebody else is not ready to do this thing right now, does not mean they will never be. It just means that capacity needs to be increased, right? And what can I do to do that? Now I have a question that has something I can do actionably, um, on the other side. Yeah,
It also
therapy
takes the
coded.
demonization out of it.
Say again.
I was saying it also takes the demonization out of it when you say, I just don't have the capacity, or this
Right.
other
Yeah.
person doesn't have the capacity. It's not they're a bad person and that's why they're not doing X, Y, or Z.
Mhm.
It's they just don't have the capacity.
Right. They are limited in their capacity right now. It's a more empathetic approach, which I think leads to less impulsive decisions and leads to less stress overall. I
Absolutely.
wanted to One last thing I really wanted to talk about, because I think it's really interesting, um, is meta OCD.
Ah,
And
yes.
this was a term that Pink introduced me to, but can you introduce everybody else? What is meta OCD really quick?
Um, Let me think about how I want to define this because I didn't know this was a thing myself. Again, this is part of me trying to get more educated about myself, which is trying to learn more about, you know, what are my triggers, what are my themes and whatnot, how can I stop this before it becomes a spiral or whatnot. So meta OCD, to put it very simply, is just OCD about OCD. So instead of it having a theme like, what if I hurt someone, or what if I'm a bad person, or what if this thought means this, it becomes, am I spiraling right now? And it's good to know when you're spiraling, but then you're spiraling about the spiral.
Mhm.
Or things like, what if this isn't OCD and I'm just in denial?
Mhm.
What if that was a misdiagnosis? What if I never get better? What if I'm not doing recovery right? This is actually a conversation I had with my therapist, where I said, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know if I'm getting myself out of my thoughts correctly. So the theme itself in this scenario is OCD itself. This one can be kind of hard to deal with because a part of it feels like this one feels right. I'm 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 being self-aware. I'm checking with myself, right? Um, the problem is the categorization. I told Astro, and I think we had this conversation earlier in this discussion, which is uh, I get very confused about categorization. And part of it is good to know, but
Mhm.
analyzing and constant monitoring is not good. So that's also why sometimes, in my opinion, dealing with OCD can be a little bit complex, because even something as like, well, that sounds kind of responsible, right? You're thinking about whether or not you're spiraling. That seems like a good thing. And it can be. I think that's the entire theme of all this, is like a lot of the thoughts that people with OCD have, although some of them, like for example, and this one is a pretty taboo one, um, thoughts about incest, thoughts about pedophilia. That is an OCD thing because it's something that you so desperately do not want to be aligned with that you will start to panic about it. But in general, a lot of the thoughts that come up are not inherently bad. but they just become harmful because you can't let them go.
So I wrote here, as you were describing it, you know, meta OCD is OCD about your OCD. To put it very, succinctly. And then you started to say instead of a theme, it becomes something different. But what it sounds like, and this kind of helped me when we had the discussion that we had last night. And again, correct me if I'm wrong. That instead of a theme like relationships or work or life and death or whatever, the theme becomes OCD itself. So the overarching questions become: is this OCD? Is it not OCD? If it is OCD, then this is going to happen. Then this is going to happen, right? It's the same pattern. It's just
Same
the
pattern.
theme. It's the exact same pattern, but the thoughts start to circle around the disorder itself. Is that fair?
That is exactly correct. Yes.
And so one of the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because we had a really in-depth conversation last night about identifying when a thought is an OCD thought versus when it's not. And we had noticed that if-then pattern, or that what-if hypothetical then leading to an if-then pattern. And then that sort of kind of spiraling from there. So what if this happens? Because if that happens, then this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen. And, from the perspective of somebody that doesn't have OCD, I was sitting there saying, well, that thing happening doesn't necessitate that next thing happening. That's just one possible outcome, right? So I was thinking about it from, well, logically speaking, that's just one possible outcome of many, many possible outcomes. It doesn't necessitate it. Therefore, that is an illogical thought or an irrational thought. And so I started to think, okay, this is irrational thinking, and it's very repetitive. And then I was like, I'm noticing a pattern here of if then, if then, if then.
Right.
And the thoughts in those if thens are not rational thoughts. And I was telling Pink, like, I know you. You are a rational person. You are somebody who cares about rationality and making decisions or thinking as rationally and empathetically as possible. So all of a sudden, it was like you became your brain. It felt like it was hijacked. Like I wasn't talking to the same person anymore. And I said,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's a definite pattern. If this, then this, then this, then this. And we got through that discussion. And then at the end of it, it was, that also applies to meta OCDs. When you would have spiraling thoughts about your OCD, it followed the exact same pattern of, well, if this is OCD, then that means this, and then that means this, and then that means this. And it follows and follows and follows. And it was I had the same response of, it doesn't necessarily follow. And I brought up oh my gosh. What's the spiral? What is it again? What is it called? Slippery slope. Sorry,
What?
slippery slope.
Oh,
The
yes.
slippery
Okay, I
slope
was like,
fallacy.
which one?
Yeah, sorry, that was my bad. But a slippery slope fallacy, which is a fallacy that is defined by saying that one event or a circumstance necessitates another when that's not inherently true. It doesn't necessitate the next thing. And so we notice that pattern, and it's interesting because, I talked about earlier, like a brain that is susceptible to patterns. I wonder if that's a part of developing OCD as well, because it's very, very patterned. It's very rigid in that pattern and very repetitive in that pattern. And it was almost like it was safe or protective for you. Also, hi, Hypno. Welcome in. And bye, Biscuit. I know you have to
Hello.
leave. I hope you have a good night.
Hi,
And get some rest.
Biscuit. Mwah.
So, what do you, when you think about the meta OCD, because I know that's even more of a mind-boggling experience,
Mm-hmm.
but it still has that very defined pattern. How does that make you feel that it's that consistent?
A part of it, I think, for me, it's helpful to know because it's hard to know what it is when you're in the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's an ad, so I can pause and we can continue after.
But I do think that's very interesting that the pattern, and I wonder if it's a consistent pattern with other people who have OCD or not. I mean, I don't know. I'm talking to one person.
And I would love to hear what you think about what do you mean when you say pattern? I think I'm super interested in how you see it and how you view it too, because I think for me, I know what it is for me in my perspective because I'm inside the thing. But as someone who's outside of the storm, as I call it, I would love to hear what you see, because I think for me yesterday it was very kind of eye-opening to sit with someone in the midst of it.
Mhm.
Because I don't typically do that. I mean, at this point, I will turtle in and I'm like, I will deal with this myself. I'm gonna
Mhm.
do it myself. Um, so it's interesting now to hear like, oh, now I'm sitting with you while you're having a spiral, and this doesn't seem like the way you normally talk. And
Mhm.
for me, I'm like, yes, it is. This is how I always talk. What do you mean? I'm always like this. Like,
I
no.
wanted to bring that up earlier too because, with OCD, it's a very isolated disorder. You're in
Mhm.
your own head. And
Yes.
so that is by itself, it has to be very difficult to navigate because you want to trust yourself and say you know yourself the best, but also you can't trust yourself because the OCD helps you really helps you not trust
Yeah.
what you think and how you feel. But then on top of it, you think that all of this, it's life or death and it has to do with you and you need to fix it. And then you step outside of that and you go, oh, wait, once I'm out of my head, things are a little bit different than what I was thinking. Welcome back from the ad, everybody. So we're just having a discussion about some of the things we wanted to talk about when everybody came back. Um, so you had mentioned, I asked you, how does it feel when it's that consistent? And you said that it was helpful for you to know that, in that, you know, I think part of it is identification of
Yes.
of a spiral, which is huge because if you know something, you can do something about that something, right? I think that's true
Exactly.
in so
Hmm.
many circumstances. But I thought about it for a second and I wondered, 'cause sometimes I will almost get pissed off that an answer to something is what I view as so simple because it's almost, well, why didn't I think of that one? And also, this thing has consumed my life, and something as simple as a pattern or a statement just unraveled this thing that I have been holding on to for so long, and it kind of makes me mad. Do you have any of that feeling, or is that more a me
I
thing?
think it's no, I think it's really interesting that you touch on this because a part of it, I call it vulnerability hangover, which is at the time I'll feel really good. I'm like, oh my God, I talked to my friend and like we noticed this and I feel like I have like more tools now. This is great.
Hmm.
Or even with my therapist, like she'll tell me to do something and I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I like we talk about things. The next day I feel very stupid. And I think this is something that I need to work on. It's something that I have talked about extensively, this innate sense of I wasn't smart enough to figure this out on my own. It's something I'm trying to work on. It is not, I don't think it's a healthy thought. I don't think it's productive. I know where it comes from.
Hmm.
Um,
We talked about
but it's
that.
very, yeah, we talked about that extensively.
Hmm.
But it's very difficult sometimes to sit with someone else had to support me through this. But I'm trying to think of it more as like if someone has broken their leg and they need a wheelchair to get places, we don't vilify that person for needing a wheelchair to get places. We don't go, well, just pull yourself up. Like, just crawl. Why are you using a wheelchair? What's wrong with
Right.
you? I'm trying to see it in the same way where it's like, it's very easy for me after the fact, because hindsight is 2020, to go, well, why didn't I figure that out? It's like, yeah, because you're going through what feels like again war. Like
Hmm.
your body doesn't feels very dysregulated. You're in that moment, you're not in the headspace to be making like, ah, yes, this is, because then it wouldn't happen in the first place.
Your capacity is
Eventually
slim.
I'm yeah, eventually I may get to the point where I can notice these things myself. I may still need support. That's okay. This is not a linear thing. It's very difficult for me to come to terms with that because again, there's a sense of like I need to be independent. I am, and I some of you have heard me say this so many times. I'm 30. I need to do
Hmm.
this. Age means nothing. We all need support at any age.
Hmm.
And that this is just something society has, I think, shoved into my head along with other environmental factors. But yeah, I understand the sense of frustration and anger because I go through that the next day. So at the time, I'm like, I feel great, woohoo, we did this. Next day,
Hmm.
I'm like, oh my God, I didn't do that on my own. I am lame, which is mean. That is a mean thing to say. I wouldn't want to say that about anyone else, so I don't think it's fair to say that about myself.
I do, after stream, I want to touch on some of these topics with you privately because I think we could have some cool,
Absolutely,
interesting discussions about it.
100%.
But I know that they're personal, so I'm not going to do that right now. Would it help to talk to someone about the thoughts? Max says, would it help to talk to someone about the thoughts during the spiral, or would it be enabling? And that is not a stupid question. There's no,
Not at all
I don't
stupid.
think you're capable of a stupid question. It's you're fine. And that's not the vein of this discussion anyway. So, all right, let me type. That's to
Sorry, I
you,
was
Pink.
sipping
Go
some
for it.
tea. That is a really, really, really good question, actually. Like, I think if it's one of those things, and this comes from one, wanting to support someone with OCD, and also as someone with OCD, that was really confusing for me. It's something I had to talk to my therapist about because I was like, well, is it still reassurance seeking if I just want to talk to someone? And Astro and I have talked about this too because I was like, sometimes I don't want to talk to my friends because I'm worried that that is reassurance seeking, and I do want to be better about how I deal with this. I don't want to stay in you know the tar pit of my spirals, as they say. I think having friends like Astro who are willing to educate themselves and also willing to ask questions and be like, well, I don't would this be reassurance seeking, or I'm gonna go see what actually is reassurance seeking, has been really helpful because it gives me the space to still talk about how I'm feeling without having someone be like, no, you're so smart, you're perfect, which to me, like, that sounds great, it sounds wonderful, it's not helpful for me because then I will just it's like giving someone fish and not teaching them how to fish is the
Hmm.
only way I can describe
Become
it. So
dependent on it.
talking about, yeah, you become dependent on it. I'm like, okay, now I know I can go to this friend and just ask them to say nice things to me, and then I'll feel good for like 30 minutes, and then I'll feel bad after 30
Right.
minutes.
Right.
So I will say, actually talking about the thoughts was incredibly helpful. I did get frustrated at one point, and I think it was just coming to terms with, yeah, these are not rational thoughts. I'm not having a rational mindset right now. But actually talking about it was incredibly helpful.
Hmm.
But there was no point in that conversation where there was reassurance giving. There was no point that was like, I'm telling you for sure, this is definitely never going to happen. This thing you're worried about, never going to happen. There was none of
Hmm.
that. There was,
Hmm.
which is incredibly good for me. I don't
Right.
need that. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
So I think having people around me that are aware of what my disorder is and what that can look like means that they can give me support in the best way possible.
Yeah, I think it's the same. We talked about it a little earlier. It's just this. It's the same thing as, if someone you love is going through epilepsy or cancer, right? You want to learn how best to support them. It's not burdening them to do that. They just want to care for you, and the best way that everybody can function is that they learn how to do that, even just how to interact with you in a caring way, so that everybody continues to care about each other. Otherwise, that's when miscommunication happens. That's when, people can hurt each other without meaning to, right? Both physically or mentally. It's just better for everyone involved to know what it is that, or where it is that the other person is coming from, because then you can truly be there for them if you need to be, or even just know how to interact with them in a way that lets everybody feel good, right? Because that's the idea of having a friendship, or talking with anybody in general, is that you want to feel good coming out of it. Or if it's a serious conversation, you want it to be constructive, not harmful. So
Mhm.
it's necessary. I don't We talked about how, people throw around the word burden, or, it's not my job to deal with that. There is something to be said, right? I cannot be your therapist, and I cannot give you workbooks, and I cannot, say this is OCD or this isn't OCD. But I can say this is what I notice, right? And this is what I see, and this is what it sounds like. And I think you should talk to your therapist about this. And I can sit there and hear the thoughts and know, okay, so something I need to not do is tell you that that thing will happen or won't happen, or that you'll get what you want or you won't get what you want, or that you are this or aren't this, if what you are seeking is that answer. because that's not going to help. It's only going to make it worse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I will say I'm very lucky. I have a very great support group. I have a great therapist. Um, so I do feel like I have a much more well-rounded and like complete, I guess, like source if I ever need it.
Hmm. Max, has being a therapist and being a friend are very different, but both are necessary. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. That's
and Pink said this earlier, that so much of the work of therapy is done outside of the therapist's office. I think about it more like the therapist is a teacher. They facilitate your learning, and then you have to apply that learning. And you don't
hmm
see every single teacher. I mean, for some folks it's different, but for example, if you're in college or if you're at a university, you don't see every single professor every single day. And even if they dispense information to you, it's your job to internalize it, to learn it, to understand it. They can shove it in your face, and if you refuse to look at it, you're not going to learn it. It's the same thing with therapy, that you have to take on the responsibility of doing that work. But a lot of that work happens when you're not in front of a therapist, and
Yep.
your friends talk with you consistently. They notice things about you. They can be great sources of information as to bettering yourself and applying skills. So for example, part of the reason why I love our friend group so much is that I've been doing a lot of DBT skills work in therapy, and I've been practicing them with my friends. And that allows me to apply what I'm learning. And it allows me to be mindful and to better myself, and also ask the people around me to try it and help themselves and be mindful in their own, experiences in their lives. The net is nobody is doing anything harmful. It's benefiting everybody, and it's specifically allowing me to practice the skills and the tools that I need to practice to better myself. That I think is, in my opinion, is completely healthy. And then saying to a friend, "Hey, I'm noticing that this sounds like a spiral. You know, I'm here for you, right? I'm not going to tell you, what to do after this fact. I can give you suggestions, but a lot of it is, I think this is something you should talk about with your therapist. I think we've come to more information that I think you can use." Um, and for me, it's not only when we have these discussions, it's understanding my friend better. It's also, and I've said to you, I don't mean this in a case study way, but I find this very interesting. I like talking like this. Not only is it vulnerable, but it's also, it increases empathy. It gives me exposure to different types of brains and thought processes, which I think is a benefit to anybody. And it just allows me to think, which I really enjoy. I'm learning, which I like, and I'm in the meantime, I'm helping a friend, which, I mean, what better, combination of circumstances for me? I'm helping somebody that I care about, and I'm learning and growing and bettering myself at the same time. What is wrong with that at all? I also think it takes a self-awareness, knowing when you are sacrificing yourself to take care of somebody
Absolutely.
else. But
100%. Yeah.
it for me, I know that feeling, and Pink never actually goes, "Hey, can you do this?" It's more so I go, "Hey, Pookie, I'm kind of noticing something right now. Can we talk about it? If you really don't want to, we don't have to, but I'm kind of noticing something." And Pink will be like, I don't know. And I'll be like, I mean, you don't
I'm
have to.
okay. It's fine.
You
It's
don't have
bad.
to. But,
Mm.
saying that it's fine and it's a small thing, it's no big deal. I'm like, I'm kind of noticing some red flags. I think it might be beneficial to talk about it. And it ends
Which
up
I really
normally there.
appreciate. I feel
Yeah.
like this is why I think also sometimes I'm like I kind of feel I relate a lot to I love cats. I relate a lot to them, which is like I think I still need the space where I feel like, oh, I'm safe. And I have not felt safe with friends before. So it's still very
Mhm.
new to me when someone's like, "Hey, you doing okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, I think they're just asking to be nice, but if I actually accept this kindness, then
If
I'm
then,
being a
if then,
burden."
if then,
But
if
this
then.
if then, exactly.
Hmm.
And then they're gonna get mad and then blah 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 blah. And I think this kind of goes back to our earlier conversation, which, my brain learned that this is the way to keep myself safe because I was in unsafe and crappy friendships. To be totally fair with you.
Hmm.
Um, but it's very appreciated. So I think, Max, I just kind of go back to your question. So it does help, but having a good support group and I mean a well-rounded support group, and that means having friends and having a therapist. Having a therapist is very important because, again,
Mhm.
friends are wonderful, but I need to still go and look out for tools that can help me
Right.
function.
Right. Exactly.
Also, hi
Also,
Blandon. Hi
I was just gonna
Yumi.
say, speaking of supportive friend groups, hi Blandon, thank you for the 4-month resub. Hi
Yay!
Blandon.
I'm clapping, but I
Blandon is
don't
one
think
of the
this one's gonna
pookies. We love
get to it.
Blandon. Yumi! Oh my god, dude. We've been having such a good discussion. I was like, man, I wish Yumi was here. They would have such cool thoughts about this. Frick. It's okay though. You have a life. I'm proud of you. Go live your life. Um,
What? Life? What? What are you talking? What?
you're right. You're right. They're part of the hive mind. You guys dedicate your souls to me.
Yeah.
They're in my dominion now.
I thought you were like God or something. Jeez.
Yes, I am. We've been talking OCD. This was supposed to be a Wednesday segment, but I was not feeling well on Wednesday, and I still really wanted to do this week because I plan on having other people do this with me every single week. So for you guys who just joined, I want to turn Wormhole Wednesday into an interview segment where I have people on to talk about any kind of topic. So today it's OCD because that was the topic that Pink wanted to talk about, and we both agreed it could be
Mm-hmm.
really beneficial for a lot of different reasons. Um, and then, um, so I want to have people, I want to interview them to talk about these, whatever topics it is that they want to talk about, that they have some authority to speak on. Um, and I eventually want it to evolve to having true subject matter experts on this segment because number one, I love learning. I like talking about things and I love learning, but also I think platforming, you know, whether it's sociopolitical issues or mental health topics or environmental science or and I mean anything, right? So one person might want to talk about speech language pathology, right? Super freaking cool, or linguistics, you know, any of these things. There's value in talking about them, and I just think we get caught up in the day to day and don't see it, but it's there. Um, okay. And then Yumi says, I was actually just making a paragraph comforting a friend before this. It's amazing to pop in
Aww.
about you guys talking about friend groups. I know. That's why we've had so many people today talk about how they have OCD or they got diagnosed or they know people that have OCD. And I truly consider it a blessing that the friend group that I have, number one, they're so therapy forward. Oh, ad. No, ad. Frick. Okay, therapy forward. I'll keep that in my brain. Babs turd. Babs turd. Hello, Needle.
Your
Welcome
friend group
in.
is insane, by the way.
Welcome in.
I
Welcome
don't
in.
think I could have wished for a better group of people to be in contact with.
No, I know.
It's crazy.
I know. That the other night when everybody sat while I yapped, it was so nice to just feel like I was talking to a room full of adults with, you know, critical thinking and nuance. It's like, oh my god, I love this. I love it so much.
It's also it was really nice for me to sit there too, because it's like, it's nice to see people not have, again, because my entire thing is black or white thinking. So for me, it was nice to see, oh, there can be gray. There can not everything has to fit into this is bad, this is good. It can be this kind of sucks, but it doesn't have to fit into this or that. There's nuance. There's room for wiggle room or whatever. So
yeah, right.
It was nice. It was nice to sit there.
I still had to struggle with, I've been talking for so long. Oh my god, they must be getting so bored. But I know that's a me thought.
That is something that, well, but I understand though. It's if I think it all fits back into this idea of being a burden and not wanting to take up people's time or taking up space. I think that's we have been kind of conditioned not to be allowed to take up space.
Yeah, or that taking up space somehow will push people away from us.
Yeah.
When it honestly, if you're in the right circles, taking up space and talking about yourself and being vulnerable is to do the opposite.
It makes me feel closer. I'm always like, I feel so honored and truly, it's one of the things I like. It makes me feel so good when someone's like, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" I'm like, "Yes." You want to talk to
Mm-hmm.
me? You feel comfortable enough with me
Mm-hmm.
that you want to come and talk to me about how you feel.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can go do that. I
Right.
will sit with you for however long you need.
Welcome back from the ad, everybody.
Hello.
Yeah. So I was just about to talk about friends being therapy forward, and that this kind of been a theme in this discussion anyway. That friends are having a support network, having friends or having companions of any kind that truly want your benefit and that are able to do, because I've mentioned several times that, you know, there is, I believe this is a toxic thought process to have, that it's not your job to deal with your friend's mental health. And
I
this is true.
agree.
It is true. I am not your therapist. I cannot treat your mental health. But one, I can be there for you. And two, part of effectively being there for people that we care about is learning about them and about how they think and about how they struggle so that we can support them best. And sometimes that means, yeah, I do a little bit of Googling. Yeah, I do a little bit of thinking about it. Yeah, I ask questions because I'm trying to understand you better so that I can support you in the way that it's actually going to help you because I care. I'm not going to, I can't dispense you medication. I can't say you need to do these workbooks or use these practices. I can make suggestions, but a lot of the time, as you have noticed, it's, I think you should talk about this with your therapist. Maybe this is something to discuss with your therapist. And then you'll come back and say, so this is what my therapist thought. And sometimes it's an
Yeah.
agreement, sometimes it's not. And that's totally fine, right? I think be part of being a friend, and we talked about this too, is that relationships are not effortless. They are not supposed to be. Relationships take effort, any kind of relationship. A friendship takes effort to cultivate. A romantic relationship takes effort to cultivate and keep alive. Even, parental, familiar relationships take energy and effort to cultivate. There's nothing wrong with putting forth effort. If you are sacrificing yourself to care for somebody else, is when that can be a problem. And the thing that I love so much about our friend group, and more of our friend group is showing up, which I love that we're talking about this right now. But the thing that I love so much is that there is never an air of, there's an expectation that anybody needs to be there for anybody. Although I do think people could ask more. I truly believe people could ask more. But everybody is therapy forward. They encourage therapy. We love therapy. We talk about different strategies that we can use together. We practice them with each other. We give each other insights that we can truly use to benefit ourselves personally. Like, our friendship is not only this place where we giggle and gaff and talk about interesting things, but it's also a place where we can truly better ourselves and work towards bettering ourselves. It's almost like a testing ground for the things that we work on in therapy in the most neutral sense of the term, right? So when I was doing RAIN and I came to our friends and went, I want to try this out. Would you guys be open if I did that a little bit in the friend group? Everyone's like, yeah, let's go for it. I sure. And it ended up being helpful for you in some respects, me in other respects, and everybody else gave it a shot. And it was just a learning experience. And I got to practice the things that I needed to practice to help me. And it was potentially helping my friends too. So and we learned more about each other. So all around, I think our friend group in particular is just so willing to learn, so willing to be wrong, so willing to allow everybody to take up space. There is no pressure. It is really radically accepting. We do have our own mental health issues, all of us do, but we all interact with each other from this place of a foundation of trust and care.
Yes.
And we are really on the lookout for, we want to make sure everybody feels safe and happy in the midst of it. And I think that is just such a blessing. I have had such bad experiences with friendships, and I am so shocked, and I'm so glad that it truly feels like I'm sitting in a room full of intelligent, I'm going to start to cry, intelligent, empathetic, well-meaning, kind, mature individuals. It is just it's so relieving. It feels like, oh my God, this can actually happen. This thing that I thought it was supposed to be actually happens in real life, and it boggles my mind.
There's
Yumi
a
says, oh, go for it.
huge sense of safety. No, I was just gonna say this, and we can go to Yumi, but I was just gonna say there's a huge sense of safety. Like, oh, if I mess up, it's not the end of the world, and we can have a conversation about it, which is so rare.
Mhm.
With I mean, in this day and age, I don't know. I feel like it truly there is some cosmic thing that happened that brought this little group of people together, and
Right.
it is very beautiful. Anyway, I
No,
will
yeah.
shush.
No, I completely agree. If this had been talked about before, ignore. Wait, having OCD. Wait, what?
Having
What?
OCD, have people treated you differently when learning you have it?
Because Yumi just said ignore me a couple of times.
Oh,
So
I think it was ignore
yeah.
me if it was talked about before.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I understood. So if people treated
No
you
worries.
differently when learning you have it, and if so, how did slash do you cope with that? I know that was a big fear.
Huge fear.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first time in my life, and I'm not saying that like lightly. I did not tell people ever. My boyfriend did not know. My
Mm-hmm.
second partner did not know. No one knew. I did not. I was gonna say do not, but I do talk about it now clearly
Mm-hmm.
as we are talking about in a very public format. There was I so I don't know if people would have treated me differently, but there was a massive fear about it. Um, and I think that comes from feeling unsafe. I did not feel safe with my partner. I did not feel safe with my friends at the time. I did not feel like they had the ability to be
Mm-hmm.
like, I guess honestly kind about it. I felt like it was going to be a source because and unfortunately I had been shown time and time again that when I share things it gets used against me. Like I was very afraid that anything I said moving forward would be like, well, this is just your OCD talking, so
Mm-hmm.
meh, I'm not gonna listen to you. This is just your OCD talking, so I'm not gonna take this seriously. So there was a massive fear of that. Would it have been taken negatively? I don't know that for a fact. I do think it would have, just given the type of people that I had
With certain
around,
people,
like
yeah.
surrounding me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I felt comfortable enough to finally be more open about it was because I felt safe. I felt like I had good
Right.
friends. I felt like if I had shared this part of myself, it's not going to be something that is going to vilify me. In fact, it
Mm-hmm.
might actually bring me a little bit closer and
Yes.
help my friends know a little bit more about how to talk to me sometimes if I'm going through something difficult.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I can, and I see Jingles. I see you in here. Hello, hi,
Hey,
and I see
Jinkies!
you're saying things, and they're sweet and wonderful. And I love you, and we both love you. We're like knee deep in a conversation. Um, but as the person on the other end, um, I am really glad that you did say something, to me and to everybody else about it, and I'm really glad that you opened up about it because now it was a very simple, like I don't even know how to express to you how just a tiny bit of a mental shift it was to go, oh, okay, reassurance seeking. I just need to be mindful of that. It was such a small switch that just tink, and then it was on, and then I don't really need to think about it. I just go, okay, so this is something I'm just aware of now in these conversations. And because of that, we're able to have conversations that benefit you and benefit me and make everybody else feel better. And it's very, very um reciprocal. Um and it genuinely has helped me understand you better as a person. And that does bring people closer. And I think it's why once you feel closer, once you feel safe, you do the hard thing and you say the thing that you were afraid of saying, you feel safer. And then you can do it again, and you can do it again, and you can do it again. And then you
Hmm.
can start to unpack things that you haven't unpacked before and feel safer sharing about other topics that you might not have otherwise. And so taking that risk and saying it, when we say it's brave, it's not an exaggeration because it is terrifying, especially when you've learned that it's not safe to say those things. And I do agree that from what I know of those people, had you said those things, they would not have responded very well. And it
Mm-mm.
would have made you feel
Mm-mm.
really awful already when you already feel awful about it. So
Yes.
part of it is being selective about who you choose to be vulnerable with. And that's a trust thing. But another part of it is that once you are vulnerable, not only do you feel closer to your friends, but you also feel closer to yourself. You understand yourself better, or you give yourself the opportunity to do so. And the beautiful thing is that we're all, or most of us, are going through therapeutic experiences of our own. And so then we all share, and then we learn more about ourselves and about each other, and we look at things from different angles, and it's very, very productive. It's very mutually beneficial. Um,
But I feel really, really blessed. I don't think, if it wasn't for folks like Astro and Jingles and Brandon and Hill and AJ, and I can name so many names, but if it wasn't for these people like creating a like a nice little nest of like, just good conversations, and
mhm.
seeing them share things, and I'm like, okay, this isn't an unsafe space. Because like you said, I think if I had shared it with my old group of friends and my old, like, my partner and all that stuff, not only would not have gone well, I think it took me 10 years to get to this spot.
Right.
So it took a long time, and I'm not saying I undid all of that damage. I think a lot of it's still being worked through,
Mhm.
but it's a slow process. But anyway, to answer your question, Yumi, I don't know how they would have reacted, but I think from what Astro knows and from what I know and from what I saw, it wouldn't have gone well. But I don't think it was necessarily because of the OCD itself. It's just that they were not people that
Right.
had the ability to
Yeah.
be very nuanced. It was very black or white.
They,
And I think that's just part of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go for it. You're talking.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think it's just part of, also, I think you mentioned this, Astra. You also have to, I do have to be a little selective as well. And I think this is
Mhm.
with anything. You have to make sure you're keeping yourself safe. So I'm open with this now because I feel safe. I feel comfortable. I know the people that I care about are not people that I am frightened of how they're going to react. Because I know whatever it is they're going to react, it's going to be coming from a place of care and love.
Mhm. No, absolutely. The other thing I wanted to say, and it's something you and I have said a lot to you, but I've said it in general, and I mean this, and I know it's not gonna land that way, but this is for everybody as well. If somebody is not able to hold a part of you in any way, shape, or form, that is a commentary on their capacity. It has nothing to do with you. If they are not able to show compassion and love and kindness and understanding to a part of you, that has to do with them. It is their lack of the capacity to care for you and care about you. They are lacking in their own way. They need to go get therapy about it. They're struggling with their own stuff. If somebody can't do that for you, that's on them. Because the moral of the story is that when we talk about, am I lovable, right? And does the thing that I have make me unlovable, or am I too difficult to love? The true answer is, in my opinion, that because I know this is something that a lot of people think about as well. I think about it. It's not a factor of whether you have a disorder or not, or whether you have a condition or not, that makes you lovable or not lovable. What makes you lovable is, number one, that you exist, and number two, that you fundamentally have the capability of love. You can love other people. If you can love other people, you can be loved. That's it. And what that means is, you can feel empathy, you can feel sympathy, you can have understanding. If you have the capacity to love, then you have the capacity to be loved. Because of, not in spite of, but and in conjunction with whatever it is that you're struggling with. Because struggling doesn't negate love. Love is something that happens inside and outside of struggle, during and when struggle isn't occurring. Some of the most painful times in human history are when people found some of the most deep senses of community and love, right? And I'm not saying that to minimize the pain of the experience whatsoever, but you do what you need to do to survive. And all humanity, if you are capable of being loved, if you're capable of love, you're capable of being loved. Is my opinion on that matter. But I did want to address what Jingles was saying. The effort of a friendship should, in the long run, refill your batteries. Absolutely, right? You should feel refreshed in your friendships. I completely agree. I do not ever feel like anybody in our friend group is dragging me down or taking away from me. Um, I like literally always feel like I'm being cared for in some way, or that we're all caring for each other.
Hmm.
Jingle says, I didn't know Pinky had OCD when we first became friends, and in my experience, it changed nothing for me. I think at the most, it made me more understanding and shift how I expected our conversations to go. What do you think about that?
This is so. There's some. I mean, this entire like, and I'll give you guys some context as well. But like, and Astro, you know this, and I think I've talked about a little bit. And if you go on if you've seen my comics and stuff, I've talked about it extensively there. But I like gave up on friendships for a very long time, because I thought, it keeps going bad. There's no way that it can ever X, Y, and Z. It can never go well, basically. Like, these people, I've had bad friends, and I'm always going to have bad friends, so I'm just going to give up on that. So hearing like such a level of care and empathy from people that I love a lot, like I love you guys very much. There's no other word I can use other than very healing. Like, it is like, I wish I could go back to myself when I was 20 and say, hey, this is not forever. It's okay. You might feel like it's forever right now, but it's not.
I mean, we are in an ad. Things can feel like forever, especially when we have mental illness. Things feel very permanent sometimes because they can extend for a long period of time. Also, with mental illness, symptoms exist for a long time, and they just get kind of worse and better over time. So then you start to think, oh, and I talked about this too, that, well, this is how I'm always going to be. Is it always going to be like this? And I don't think those are two different. I think those are two different questions.
Yes.
You are not always going to be in the state that you are in right now. This is always going to be a part of you, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be awful. In fact, there might be, and it might be hard to sit with now, but OCD may grant you connection and love that you wouldn't have experienced otherwise had you not had OCD. And I could say that about a lot of different things. It's not to say I don't want to buy into or propagate that idea of, my disability is my superpower, but we can find community around things that we struggle with. And that community wouldn't exist if we did not have that struggle. That love and understanding and empathy wouldn't exist if we didn't have that struggle. So, welcome
There
back
have
from the
been
ad.
things that you and our friends have said to me. Like, I'll specifically call out Jingles. Jingles said, your OCD gives you wabi sabi. I cannot tell you how happy that made me.
Gives you
Like,
wabi
I know
sabi.
it made me feel so like, and I talked to my therapist about it. I'm like, that made me feel like it's not something that is this, again, because I was so afraid to talk about it. I'm like, I don't want people to know. They're gonna look at me differently. They're gonna think I'm like this evil person, whatever. No. But again, like, I feel very blessed for the friends that we have. And part of me also, that OCD thought will come up, which is like, what if this isn't forever? But I feel comfortable in sitting with the uncertainty because I know I can get through it and I can do this. But also, having a safe space like this is, I don't think people realize how valuable it is. Like, this is priceless. This is not something to me that like I can put a price on or say like I can do this and replace that.
Right.
This is very important. This is why I'm saying it's so important to have a good support group, because you guys saying things like, oh, you wouldn't be you without this thing. You have many other things that make you you, but you don't have to see it as this evil thing that you have to eradicate. That was a very big thing for me to hear, because rhetoric online is not exactly the best thing to read, but that was what I was absorbing, which is like, you have to fix it. People with this are so weird, yada yada. We talked about, like, for example, like avoidant and anxious attachment or whatnot.
Yep, I was just thinking about that.
A lot of these things are just vilified when these are things that we can work on, but they're not necessarily evil.
No, No, I don't agree in a concept of true bad or true good in that way. Um, human experience is just too complex to say things that is evil and that is, uneval. Um, of course, there are some outliers, but by and large, humanity, we're just way too complex of creatures. Our society, our relationships are way too complex to say this thing bad, this thing good.
Hmm.
Period in the story. And I mean, I think we're also talking about the power of community, and all of us were talking about this the other night, where there are rich people in the world, but they are often very lonely. And there is no amount of money that I would rather have than have people around me who I know would be there if I needed them. They may not have
Agree.
the money themselves. I'm
Fully.
not talking about they would give me money, but they would do every possible thing that they could, if they could do it, to help me. That is priceless, because the truth of it is, being a billionaire often means that a lot of people want you dead, and a lot of people do not give a damn if you're alive or dead at the end of the day. You go home to your big house, you have all your assets, you have all your money, you can do so many things that the average person can't do. You often do them alone. And you often don't have the people who would be there for you no matter what. Because to become a billionaire, hey, billionaires are unethical. If you're a billionaire, you stepped on other people and exploited them for profit. Just letting you know. Oh, by the way, that's if you were
Preach.
confused about Astro's opinion on that topic. But you're often not a good person if you're a billionaire. Not gonna lie, this genuinely made me tear up. Max says this. Not gonna lie, this genuinely made me tear up. You guys are actually so inspiring. You have no idea. I'm glad.
Aw.
That's all I want with this series, with my platform, with all of it. It's why I wanted to return to this, because this is what feels right to me. This is what I feel right doing with a community and with a platform and with my voice. Is I want to create spaces where people can learn and grow and support each other, because I want to be the type of person that prioritizes that. That's the person that I want to be. And if this helps people in any way feel good, or learn, or consider things differently, that's exactly what I want. Um, Ooh, Yumi's got a great message. Having a pessimistic mentality, like it will never get better, is part of what I was talking to my friend earlier about. Personally, I believe that since happiness isn't forever, sadness is also not forever. Ooh, Pink has thoughts about this. The bad things make the good things, quote, good, and that's beautiful to me. I wish I could give out some of the hope I have to other people who need it so bad, lol. And then being in people's life gives them hope. Jingles responded to that. But you
Fully
have...
agree. I do.
You do.
I do. I have a big. There's actually a tattoo I really want to get. Oh my god, the sky is so pretty. I'm just looking outside and it's like pink and purple. The bland colors.
Bland.
But I do have thoughts about this. One of my favorite quotes is "This too shall pass," and it's from a Persian story. I'll give you like a very very short summary of it, but it's this king who says, "I want a ring engraved for me that when I'm sad, it's gonna give me hope, and when I have a lot of happiness, it's gonna remind me this is also fleeting," which is this idea of really trying to be present, which is so hard. It is so difficult to be in the present moment. Because being in the present means you're not thinking of the past, you're not thinking of the future, you're just in it right now. So, this idea of, sadness is not forever, happiness is not forever. Whatever you have, you are going to be in it in that point in time, which is why I'm like this thought, Yumi, I think is very beautiful, because everything in life is it has ebbs and flows. Even if you are like, right, there's been times where I'm like, well, I was so happy back then. Okay, you could get back to that. Or, I'm so sad right now and this is just going to be how I am forever and nothing is going to change. There's nothing in life is set in stone, and you can take that as a good thing or a bad thing. It's a neutral thing. Like, the only thing it means is that you have to be in the moment, which, trust me, I know that is so hard. It is so difficult to be in the moment, because my brain wants to not be in the moment. My brain wants to know what's going to happen in the next 10 years so I can be relaxed. But that's part of part of, again, it's part of the work, is learning to sit with that and also learning to be in the moment that you currently are, because you're going to miss things otherwise. If like, I've had so much time in my life that I've been furiously trying to solve what's going to happen in the next 5, 6, 10 years, 20 years, what have you. And it's like, when you do that, you are actively losing out on the right now.
Yeah,
So that's my 2 cents there.
I do think the only, if I call them regrets, although I don't know if I do. The regrets that I do have is that I didn't enjoy certain things that I had while I had them as much as I think I could have. Kind of revel in them. Um, but I do think one of the things I really love about my life, just talking about me personally, I've had a lot of life experience for the number age that I am. Non-standard. I've had a lot of non-standard life experiences for my age, and I've learned courage. I've learned a lot, and I've gotten to see so many things about life, and I'm still at an age where my life is in flux. Buddy. Hey. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Courage is getting.
No worries. Courage is being cute. Okay, Unc.
I don't know about that. But hey, sit. Sit. Yes, good boy. Stay. I've had a lot of life experience. I've been exposed to a lot of things, and I'm still at an age where I can shift my life in very meaningful ways if I want to. And while a lot of the things I've been through have been very traumatic, long history of long history of trauma, they also have given me the opportunity to learn quite a bit, so that moving forward, the changes that I make, I know can come from kind of an informed experience. And I see Yumi's message too, and I want to touch on that as well. That hold on, OBS, please. Yumi says, life is change, good or bad. While change is hard, it's such a beautiful thing and an interesting topic to think such talk about. I completely agree. And again, we believe these things. And I think all of us know a time where we didn't think about it that way. At least once, probably way more than once. But I actually have a tattoo now on my rib cage, that it's in Japanese. It's the word for the 4 seasons. The word is pronounced shunkashuto. And I always wanted that as a tattoo. I love, first of all, for anybody that doesn't know, I studied Japanese for about 8 or 9 years now. I am certified by Witowit in it or whatever. But you know, I studied the language and the culture for quite some time, and it's a very important language to me. I think it's very beautiful. I think, you know, the culture is very beautiful in its individuality. And I always wanted that specific tattoo because you're thinking, okay, the word itself, shunkashuto, it literally means the 4 seasons. It's genuinely the characters for spring, summer, fall, and winter in order. That's it. Haru, Natsu, Aki, Fuyu, all put together, smashed together, and the word together is pronounced shunkashuto. And the reason why I loved it so much is because it literally means the 4 seasons, and it can literally be used that way. But in poetry or in song, it can be used to symbolize forever, a feeling of forever or eternity. And the reason why I loved that is because the 4 seasons are like the definition of change. The seasons themselves present completely differently. The whole earth around you goes through such substantial change. Entire environments change. The color of everything changes. Plant and animal populations completely change. Water levels completely change. I mean, everything changes. Temperature, what have you. The 4 seasons themselves, each one flowing into the next, is a constant cycle of change. And I thought it was so interesting, the dichotomy of something so constant is also something that is constantly changing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really beautiful about life, is that life is change. Life is constant change. There is very little about life that is static, that stays the same for about anything. we're constantly changing and growing and becoming something new. The only things that we know that we can rely on are, I mean, it's basically death, right? Yeah, thank you, Courage. Very helpful.
Squeaky, squeaky.
No, and Courage has his 2 cents. He says, yeah, no.
He's agreeing.
We're constantly
Yes.
changing. Like the amount of food in my food bowl changed, and I don't know how I feel about that. No, you don't. Huh?
Cute.
You don't know how you feel about that.
I don't know.
You said, but Dad, the amount of times I go to the dog park changed, and I don't like that either. And it's because your foot was bleeding, and you were limping. And so we
Yeah, that little boo boo.
give Courage pieces. But it's why I got that tattoo, because it is change, and sometimes we can't receive that. Sometimes we're not ready to hear it, and sometimes we are, and there's a sense of peace that comes with the acceptance of this too shall pass. This will change. I will not always be, for example, in this spiral of OCD thoughts. I will not always feel this way. The work
Exactly.
is being able to sit with the discomfort and the uncertainty and not let it rule us. And I think that goes for so many people in so many different types of circumstances. Certainly, I know it goes for me, and you and I have talked about it quite a bit. That so much of OCD is trying to find a solution or answer a question that often doesn't have an answer. And so you have to learn to sit with it. You're not going to get it. It's not going to happen. As much as you hate it.
That's literally a part of ERP is, which I'm also realizing, when I say ERP, guys, I'm not talking about the role play thing. I just realized there's another.
Yeah, there are 2 ERPs.
That's not the one that I'm talking about. Mine is exposure and what is it? Exposure and response. Oh my God, I already forgot what it stands for. Exposure and response prevention, ERP, which is again gold standard. It is one of the most recommended types of therapy for OCD, and it's literally just gradually facing fears and this is the definition from the actual website, and it's resisting the urge to perform compulsions. So you're breaking the cycle, but that is sitting with it. You have to go, okay, I don't have an answer for this. I'm moving on,
Right.
which is hard as hell. I
Yup.
hate it.
Nope. And
This-
for different reasons.
this is
I
not
empathize
fun.
with that. Yumi says, right at this very moment, even the people around you are changing both physically and mentally. The tree you pass is slowly growing. That kid you saw in the store has a future and feelings. Someone walking outside your house has experienced so many emotions.
What the hell?
Why I love people
I'm gonna
watching.
cry.
Because you never know what anybody else is going through. And I think it's why you don't know how they're thinking or what they're thinking or how it changes or how it evolves. And instead of spending the time trying to figure out what that is, you can spend the time trying to get to the point where you can accept any of it, however it presents itself, and still feel safe and comfortable in who you are, and accept that you will change too, and that you should. There's plenty that I need to work on. You know, I've made mistakes in my past. I've also done things out of ignorance. I've also, you know, I wish that I knew certain things at certain times that I didn't know. And I'm learning that, you know, all the best that we can do is do what we can with what we have in the moment. And I think that's why life is constantly learning, is that we're just getting more things that we know in a moment, things that we have, so that we can use more things at any other given moment.
Oh, this is so on like topic with what we were talking about, but part of this and coming to terms with learning more about myself is also like learning that I don't actually know that much about myself, and I probably will always be learning more about myself and who I am and what my ideals are or how I'm dealing with things. But that is something that you and I talked about, Astra, which is like this kind of almost rebirth every time I'm I guess going through a significant event, which is like, oh, I'm learning something entirely new about myself, and I thought I knew myself at 30. No, I don't.
Nope. And you probably won't know yourself at, 35, right? And you will learn more about yourself at that point too. I think if we can look at it, reframe it, the greatest task that we have and the most exciting one is learning about ourselves. Because it's a beautiful thing to learn about language and to learn about, space and to learn about whatever you might enjoy. Um, but at the end of it all, if I'm staring, the heavenly gates in the face or whatever you believe in, the thing that I would want to know most is me. Honestly, is
Agreed.
if I had to sit there and come to terms with my life, the one thing that I hope that I would know is myself. And I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, but learning about other people also helps us learn about ourselves. Finding
Yes.
compassion with other people helps us find compassion with ourselves. And that's why I come back to all the time, humans are social creatures. I think you've heard me say that a million times at this point, that we're social creatures. We're designed for interaction. And I think this is, as humanity has evolved and our brains have expanded and our knowledge and communication has grown, one of the things that stays constant is we do need other people. Not always to, for them to do something for us in that very, strict sense of the word, but to show us ourselves, to be our mirrors, to be our complements, to be our opposites. Because we infer, if you think about, critical thinking and logic, or just basic algebra, right? For example, you have, 2x plus 1 is equal to 5, right? You're trying to solve for x. You use the data that you have in the equation to find the answer, right? If you had x plus y equals z, you can't figure it out. But once somebody fills in the other numbers, gives you more data, then you can figure out what it all means. And I think that's part of socialization, is that other people help you fill in data that you wouldn't see on your own if you were looking at the equation yourself. So I do think, and unless there's anything else that you specifically wanted to talk about, I do think that's a good place to wrap up, honestly.
I think so too.
Yeah, I
I
think
fully agree.
we've had a ton of conversation. We've gone over a lot of area. There will be a VOD on YouTube for anybody who's missed the first portion of today's segment. These will happen on Wednesdays. I swear to God, this week was an outlier. And I do have somebody lined up for next Wednesday. I think
can't wait.
this was probably one of my favorite streams that I've ever done. I really, really enjoyed this. And I feel as though not only have I learned more about OCD and about you, Pink, but also I've learned more about my community. I've learned more about me and my thoughts. I mean, we connected this to BPD and my family and all these different things. And it just went in so many different directions. And I'm really excited to, hopefully we can do another segment sometime. I'd love to do one on Farsi. I think that would be so much fun.
That would be
Learning
really
Farsi
fun, because you have
stream.
so many interesting questions.
I
that I'm like, I
know.
never thought of that. What the hell?
It's
What the
so
heck?
much fun.
It is really fun.
Yeah, but I wanted to say, obviously, Pink, thank you so much for being the first Wormhole Wednesday co-host, and for
course.
sharing about OCD and for sharing your experience with everybody here. I hope you saw people relating to you and finding support, and I think it definitely made a positive impact. And who knows, it might continue to do so. Max, by the way, this will be on YouTube. It will be on my YouTube channel, which should be in my bio everywhere. So if you want to watch the whole thing, it'll be there for you. But I thank you a lot. I'm really grateful for you as a person, and I think a lot of people. I think we helped people today.
And I do want to give you a little spiel of my own. But this meant a lot to me. I think you're a very important person and friend, and I appreciate you so greatly. And it meant a lot to me that throughout all of this, like, not even just this stream, but you've always been a very compassionate and just caring person. And I thank you so much for giving me the space to feel safe and feel like I have someone I can go to. And I think that's what your community feels as well. Like, I've heard so many times in your, and I mean, I guess read so many times in your server of people feeling like they have a safe place to go. And I think that's something you really embody, and like it's a value you really hold. And I've seen it. So thank you so much. This meant a lot to me. And I really hope that I was able to kind of give my perspective on things. And if anyone is considering a diagnosis, that, you know, they can go and explore that if they need to. But thank you so much, Astro. This was really important. I think you're doing something really, really cool.
We've talked a lot about doing things in alignment with our values, and I do feel, and Yumi will know this. I know you talked to Yumi needs to go do their math homework, but you know, I think back to those Deltarune and Amore streams, and those felt like the epitome of me having such cool conversations about mental health and about, you know, meaning and self-concept and love, and that's what I want to embody. That's what I believe in, and that's a value that I hold. Is that, I mean, it's a value that I hold, that I want any space that I am the leader of to be safe for anybody. It's something I take very, very seriously, and if there is a small pocket of the world that I can even remotely do that in, then that's what I want to do. And I do think that this segment, doing this like this, was in alignment with a part of me that was really important to me. So I again, I thank you. I think it was just a great conversation, and having people that I can ask questions of that are not, you know, they don't shy away from my constant, well, why? But why? But what? But what do you mean? But wait, what? And you know, let me go on my diatribes is really nice. We will be having Wormhole Wednesday will be consistent. Now, one thing I want to ask of everybody here. So, I do have people lined up. They are mostly friends of mine or other streamers who have topics that they would like to share about. But if you have a streamer, content creator, or somebody, anybody in any space that would be willing to sit and do a segment like this on stream, let me know. Pop it in community suggestions in the server. Let me know, because I'm going to start reaching out to people and posting about basically wanting to do this format with other folks. So if there's any person that you think, I think Astro could ask some good questions, or they could have a good conversation, or it could be meaningful in any way to you. I mean, it doesn't need to be mental health. It could be freaking, you know, Minecraft, right? I don't care. For any reason, I will look into it, and I'm very excited by it. So please go ahead and do that. And keep an eye out on the announcements. For whatever reason, we were having some issues with the announcements channel in the Discord. So keep an eye. I fixed it, I think. Keep an eye out for that. And Yumi says, forgiveness and forgiving yourself. Amore, I miss you and love you, dear God. I love Amore so much. So much. I love that game. I'm so glad that you recommended it. I love that game so much. I have such good memories of streaming that game. I love it. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I really hope you enjoyed. If you have feedback for the Wormhole segments, again, put that in suggestions. I'd love to hear it. I'm always trying to make things better, more interactive, and more enjoyable for everybody. Otherwise, I will see you guys, I believe, next week, next Monday, for our regularly scheduled programming, and check out for more announcements about our next Wormhole. All right, we're gonna hop off. It's time to feed Puppy and feed myself. I'll probably be in Pink's ear for a while later, so it's not like much will change. Just it'll be just us. All right, thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you again, Pink.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.